Chapter 3608. Arbor stood at the entrance of a mountain and looked up at the 3 words, Morning Sun Pavilion, hanging high in the air. He understood that he had finally reached the most crucial part of the climb. He reckoned that he would be able to reach the core treasure land of Morning Sun Pavilion after breaking through the 8th or 9th floor. The little fellow was a little tired after all the trouble. She ran into her own fish orchid planet and ate 2 colorful divine fish that Chocho had roasted. She drank 3 cups of spirit tea and rested for a long time. Only then did she leave the star domain and continue climbing. After the 90th floor, not only did they need to search for array talismans, Arbor also began to encounter many ferocious beasts. Subduing these ferocious beasts naturally required some effort. Unfortunately, Miss Chiao had more people on her side. When she was too lazy to deal with the ferocious beasts, she would let Qi Xianxian and the rest out and beat them up. The matter was easily resolved. On the other side, the Patriarch was lecturing the Mu family members non-stop outside. Who would have thought that the little girl was cheating all the way? Patriarch, it's the 99th floor. The 99th floor. Patriarch. Patriarch. When Mu Jinshua cried out in shock and abruptly interrupted Patriarch Chao Yang's long-winded lecture, everyone's expressions had already turned from numb to tranquil. Haha, don't ask them why they had such expressions. Because at this moment, they simply didn't know what other expressions they could show other than being expressionless. Shock. Shock. Shock and stupefaction. Don't joke around. They had already gotten used to it since yesterday evening. Like idiots, they stood for an entire night until dawn, and someone broke through the 99th floor of Morning Sun Pavilion. Was this a myth? This was definitely a myth. At this moment, Mu Jingrui could only look at his father with a wry smile. Needless to say, this child Jojo's talent was truly much higher than anyone else in the family. No wonder the Patriarch liked her so much and valued her so much. The Patriarch also turned to look at Morning Sun Pavilion and beamed. This old man wants to announce the second matter. This old man wants to pass on the position of Mu family head to my good grandson. At first, everyone thought that they were hallucinating, but after looking at each other, they realized that everyone else had the same confused expression on their faces. Suddenly, their whole body quivered, and the drowsiness from standing all night was instantly awakened by the shock. Old ancestor, what did you say? The Mu family's second son, Mu Jingxing, had an ashen face. It could be said that he was quite unsightly. What kind of joke was this? Previously, he was already very dissatisfied with Mu Jingfeng, who had neither virtue nor talent, succeeding the family head's position. Now, the old ancestor actually said that he wanted a young and inexperienced lass to lead the entire Mu family. Meanwhile, Arbor was standing on the 99-story Morning Sun building's core defensive array. With a thought, Xiaochen casually waved his hand. Mu Jiating, who was sitting cross-legged on the 12th floor of the Morning Sun Pavilion, appeared on the transparent barrier in front of the formation. As long as someone entered Chaoyang Tower, Arbor would be able to see it if he wanted to. Turning off Mu Jiating's image, Arbor slowly walked through the core defense array and looked up at the 4 golden bronze doors in front of him. Reaching out to push open the first door, Sir Jojo walked in expressionlessly with a pair of small paws behind his back. Seeing the emptiness inside, the little fellow's eyes did not have the slightest ripple. She took out 2 revealing talismans and flicked them out. Chapter 3609. Rows and rows of bookshelves slowly appeared in the originally empty space in front of her. The antique air was filled with the scent of books and ink. Neatly arranged books were all placed on the bookshelves carved from red sandalwood. Mo Fei. Arbor walked towards the bookshelves and suddenly felt her vision blur. The rows of bookshelves had disappeared, and she felt as if she was standing under a vast starry sky. Scattered in front of his eyes were lumps of milky white halos, scattered and scattered in a disorderly manner. These halos were all floating in front of Arbor. They were of different sizes and shapes. Arbor raised a small hand and casually grabbed a small light spot. Holding it in her hand, she used her divine sense to penetrate it. Only then did she see clearly that it was a book about medicine. She gently let go of the book and went to grab another small light spot. What she saw now was a book about cultivation method inheritance. Presumably, this first golden bronze door contained all kinds of cultivation method inheritance manuals, as well as some books related to pills and talismans that the Mu family had collected since the upper 3 continents. Arbor slowly walked under the vast starry sky in front of her. She reached out and flipped through the cultivation method manuals in front of her. Seeing a 9 lightning haste spiritual technique, she took it and planned to give it to Xian to learn later. Just like that, she wandered under the starry sky for more than 2 hours. Arbor looked at the vast sea of books in the distance and decided to leave it at that for the time being. If she continued to wander like this, she didn't know if she could finish browsing in 3 days and 3 nights. She still wanted to go to the other 3 spaces and see what was inside. After exiting the first golden bronze door, the heavy door closed by itself. Standing before these large doors, Xiao Mu was like a tiny blade of grass. This door was estimated to be 100 feet tall. From this, it could be seen how vast the space inside was. At this moment, above the first door, on the originally empty signboard, 3 large words appeared: Book Collection Pavilion. Arbor glanced at it and turned to walk towards the second door. She gently pushed the door with her palm. The second golden bronze door creaked and automatically opened inwards. The little fellow stomped through the door, leaving a slender shadow at the door. As soon as he walked in, he could smell the fragrance of herbs in the air. It seemed that this should be a medicinal pill pavilion. After throwing out a talisman, the scene in front of him still transformed into a sea of stars. However, at this moment, the sea of stars in front of him was filled with all kinds of green herbs. Inside those small light spots of different sizes were elixirs made by famous masters. Every single one of them was at least at the divine tier. He walked around Arbor and didn't find any pills or herbs that were below god tier. He was amazed by forefather Chao Yang's generosity. This was a proper nouveau riche. Arbor waved his hand and took out a pill wrapped in a ball of light. He sniffed it and swallowed it. At the same time, the 2 and eggs and the 3 puppies suddenly jumped out excitedly. They jumped back and forth in the starry sky, and the eggs and dogs barked. Arbor looked at them expressionlessly and stepped on the tail of one of the puppies. Calm down. They'd been with her for so long, but they still looked like country bumpkins. They were so excited at the sight of some god-tier pills. Sure enough, the forefather was the forefather. After living for so many years and accumulating so much wealth, he wasn't much worse than her at all. Chapter 36:10. Arbor picked up a few pills and held the 3 puppies and 2 eggs. She knocked their heads one by one without any expression on her face. Of course, the eggs were round, so it didn't matter where she knocked them. These pills are for you. Arbor stuffed the pills into the puppy's hands and put them away. She held the 2 eggs in her hands and tilted her head. I'll give you some medicinal liquid to soak in later. Behave yourself for now. The 2 and eggs had been through a lot. Without enough sacred power to support them, it was very difficult to make them break out of their shells. Xiao Mu stroked her small chin as she pondered. Didn't venerable ancestor say that he collected all the rare treasures in the world? His grotto heaven and immortal abodes were everywhere in the 3 provinces, and he even found a sacred meridian. If he could find that holy vein, perhaps the 2 and eggs could still be saved. Thinking of this, the little girl's mood improved. She walked out of the golden bronze door and went to the next room. In the third room, there were many magic treasures and artifacts. Arbor planned to organize them when she was free. She replaced some of the things in the Maple Pavilion and gave some good ones to her senior sisters. As for the fourth door, Arbor couldn't open it. She walked around the door curiously but didn't find anything unusual. Since she couldn't open it for the time being, Arbor didn't think about it anymore. She walked out of the Chaoyang Pavilion and heard a commotion. Arbor didn't care about the people of the Mu family who were talking at once. She turned to Patriarch Chaoyang and shouted, "Are you going back? I'm going to start collecting." The old man said that the whole Chaoyang Pavilion was hers, so it was hers. Sir Siqiao was not someone who liked to be courteous to others. Since the old man was willing to send him off, Sir Siqiao could only gladly accept it. Patriarch Chaoyang had expressed his intention clearly. He was a little tired now. After all, he was only a soul and had to wait for his body to come back. Before leaving, the old man shouted at Mutsang with dissatisfaction, "You little brat, ask someone to remove my memorial tablet from the ancestral hall." The old man wasn't dead yet. Offering incense to the memorial tablet so early in the morning, could it be that they couldn't wait for him to die early? Mutsang's old face stiffened. He couldn't help but smile bitterly. How could he have expected Ancestor Zhaoyang to be so mischievous? It had to be known that the life lantern he had enshrined in the ancestral hall had long since disappeared. In addition, Ancestor Zhaoyang had not appeared in the past few decades. Who would have thought that Ancestor Zhaoyang had only gone out to travel? Of course, there were even more ridiculous things to come. Old Ancestor Chaoyang, on the other hand, showed up and reprimanded his descendants. After that, he went back to hiding in Chaoyang Pavilion. In the end, he had left behind a huge mess, and he still needed this old man to deal with it. Just thinking about it made him feel tired. Xiao Mu didn't care what the other people from the Mu clan were thinking. With a flick of her finger, she swiftly struck out several talismans according to Ancestor Chaoyang's instructions, storing the Morning Sun restaurant in front of her into a sealing talisman. Subsequently, she tossed it to her fish orchid planet for the sapling to set up. As for Mu Jiating, who was still in Chaoyang Pavilion, Arbor did not make things difficult for him. Since Mu Jiating had entered the Chaoyang Pavilion with his own ability, he could continue. When Mu Jiating left the Chaoyang Pavilion, he would ask Qiuqiu to throw him out of Fish Orchid Star. Chapter 36:11. Everyone in the Mu family, from the elders to the disciples, had complicated expressions on their faces as they watched this little girl take away the entire Chaoyang Pavilion. If someone had told them that Chaoyang Pavilion would be taken away by a Mu family disciple one day, they would never have believed it. However, today, reality slapped them twice on the right after slapping them on the left side of their faces. Painful, it really hurts. Especially Elder Qing and the others, the expressions on their old faces were very interesting. Previously, they had been making things difficult for this little ancestor by not letting her enter Chaoyang Pavilion. In the end, not only did the little grandaunt enter the Chaoyang restaurant herself, she also reached the 99th floor in one go, breaking the Mu family's 100-year record. Now, she even sealed the entire Chaoyang restaurant and took it away. She took it away. Regardless of whether this fella took Chaoyang Pavilion into her storage talisman or not, this Chaoyang Pavilion had become this fella's private property from now on. How could they accept this? How could they endure this? None of the Mu family members could bear it, let alone Elder Qing and the others. The smiles on their old faces were long gone as they frequently looked in Mutsang's direction. Mutsang didn't say anything and only looked at Arbor with a gentle gaze. "Jojo, come with Grandpa to the hall. Go invite the patriarch, the first elder, second elder, and third elder to come to the hall." Hearing this, everyone looked at each other and couldn't help but sigh in their hearts. You guys come too. Mu Tsang nodded faintly at Mu Jingxing, Elder Qing, and the others before turning to leave. Sir Jojo didn't know what had happened and only looked curiously at everyone's expression as if they had stepped on dog poop. It seemed rather interesting. Everyone looked agitated and uneasy, especially the second son, Mu Jingxing. He almost couldn't control the twitching muscles on his face and the angry expression on his face. Father, wasn't old ancestor's decision a little too hasty? Mu Jingxing shouted at his father's back as he hurriedly left. Mu Tsang ignored his sons clamoring behind his back and just sped up his pace to leave. Mu Jingxing turned around and glared fiercely at Arbor. Arbor was even more baffled. She could not figure out what was wrong with Mu Jingxing to suddenly make things difficult for her. But it didn't matter. Anyway, she had never put Mu Jingxing and the rest in her eyes. As for what they thought of her, it had nothing to do with her. Because of Mu Tsang's order, everyone could only resentfully walk towards the main hall. However, there were still many people who looked at Arbor strangely from time to time. Arbor thought that they were probably jealous that she had obtained all the treasures in Chaoyang Tower. Since she had indeed gained a lot of benefits from this trip, if these people wanted to glare at her, then let them be. Jojo decided to put up with them until he couldn't take it anymore. Then, he would smack them to death and teach them a lesson. In this way, the Mu family entered the Mu family's main hall with a strange atmosphere. Those pairs of strange eyes glanced at Arbor from time to time, but no one dared to provoke her. In the end, how this matter would develop depended on the old patriarch. It wasn't something that could be decided by a bunch of small fries shouting here. Everyone filed into the main hall and sat down. Chapter 36:12. Arbor also followed in. She looked around and found a seat at the head of the table. Mu Jingxing, who was slower than her by a beat, glared at her with an indignant expression. He muttered something under his breath and unwillingly sat down at the seat next to her. Arbor glanced at him from the corner of her eyes. She did not understand why Mu Jingxing was so resentful toward her today. Could it be that he ate the wrong medicine? Mu Tsang sat at the head of the table and raised his arm slightly. Is the family head not here yet? As he spoke, Mu Jingfeng stormed in with a furious expression, followed by the two sisters, Mu Ro Yen and Mu Ro Yun, who were crying their eyes out. Mu Jingfeng's current mood was naturally extremely bad. He did not expect that his two daughters, whom he had doted on since they were young, would actually be banished from the main family. Although he hated that his two daughters did not live up to his expectations, this did not mean that he was willing to give up on his two beautiful daughters just like that. These were the daughters that he had spent a lot of effort to nurture. Now that Mu Roxuan was no longer of any use, if he were to lose these two daughters, he would truly be unable to accept it. Arbor inexplicably swept a glance at the two weeping fools and inwardly snorted in disdain. Crazy. Weren't they just kicked out of Chaoyang restaurant by the old ancestor and did not reap any benefits? Was there a need to cry and complain to their father? What, did these two sisters think that by crying to Mu Jingfeng, they could continue to cheat their way into Chaoyang restaurant? They were simply indulging in fantasy. Arbor coldly snorted and disdainfully glanced at the two fools. At this moment, she still did not know that the old ancestor had already helped her harshly teach these two sisters a lesson. What happened next was enough for the two sisters to be unlucky for the rest of their lives. Mu Ruyan and Mu Royun both knelt down and covered their faces as they sobbed uncontrollably. The more Arbor looked at the two sisters, the more vexed he felt. He looked up at the old man sitting at the head of the table. What are the two of them doing here? You evil, before the word evil creature could leave his mouth, Mu Jingfeng felt his father, Mu Tsang, shooting him a sharp glare from the head of the table, and he forcibly swallowed his curses. Mu Tsang glared angrily at Mu Jingfeng, and his words were very rude. Why did you bring the two of them here? You didn't hear what the patriarch said earlier. I'll repeat it for you now. Mutsang reprimanded with a cold face. Ancestors' meaning is to send these two children out of the main family to gain experience and temper their temperament. If you can't bear to part with your two daughters, then go with them. Mu Jingfeng stared blankly at his father. How many years had it been? His father had never spoken to him in such a tone. After all, he was now the Mu family's head, and his status in the family was extremely honorable. No matter what his father said or did, he had to give him some face. But now, his father actually slapped him in the face in public, and even told him to scram from the Mu family. What was going on? Mutsang raised his hand to rub his brows and glared at his two granddaughters kneeling on the floor with dissatisfaction. The patriarch is right. The two of you should properly go out to gain experience and temper your temperament. Right now, he wasn't really expelling the two of them from the Mu family. He was merely sending them to a branch family to undergo life training. Looking at how the two of them were crying, where was the tenacity and indomitable temperament of cultivators? Could it be that after so many years, the Mu family had trained such disciples? Chapter 36:13. Then what kind of strength and cultivation did they have to compete with other patrician families in the future? The more Mutsang looked at Mu Jingfeng, the more he found him to be an eyesore. Look at all the unpresentable things he did. What did he do to the Mu family all these years? Right now, he couldn't help but wonder if his decision to let Mu Jingfeng succeed the family head position back then was a mistake. At this moment, alarm bells were ringing in Mu Jingfeng's heart. He saw his father's look of denial. His father's eyes were filled with disappointment and suspicion, causing his heart to be lifted up fiercely and uncontrollably thump. At this point, Arbor finally understood. As it turned out, Mu Rouyen and her sister weren't crying like this because Patriarch Chao Yang kicked them out of Chaoyang Pavilion and didn't obtain any treasures. Instead, it was because these two people were banished by Patriarch Chao Yang. This really was good news. This meant that in the future, Sir Jojo wouldn't need to see these two idiots and listen to their long-winded chatter. Arbor was a bit agitated and involuntarily swept a glance at the unlucky sisters. Coincidentally, Mu Rouyen raised her head and saw the little stoic's expressionless face. The resentment and hatred in her heart instantly surged, and she couldn't help but raise her voice and shriek, "I refuse to accept this. Arbor, do you dare to swear to the heavens that you didn't commit an act of deceiving your master and destroying your ancestors in Chaoyang Pavilion? Do you dare to swear that you didn't use an explosion talisman to blow up the entire Chaoyang Pavilion and chase after the patriarch and kill him? Do you dare to swear?" Everyone's gazes focused on Arbor. Impudent! Mutsang bellowed, "The patriarch already said that there was absolutely no such thing. Are you questioning the patriarch's decision?" "Grandpa!" Mu Rouyen burst into tears. "I don't want to leave the imperial capital, I don't want to. I don't want to go to that lousy branch family. This matter isn't up to you." Mutsang waved his hand impatiently. "Guards, escort these two back. Watch them pack their things and send them away tomorrow morning." "Grandpa!" The two sisters burst into tears. They wanted to lie on the ground and plead for mercy, but Mutsang obviously didn't give them the chance to continue talking nonsense. He directly ordered people to drag the two of them away. Mu Rouyen and her sister bitterly turned to look at their father, Mu Jingfeng. However, at this moment, Mu Jingfeng was also shocked by old Master Mu's cold expression. How would he dare to plead for leniency? He simply allowed the servants to bring them away. Mutsang coldly glanced at Mu Jingfeng. Family head, ancestor appeared just now and made an important decision. His voice was very calm, but the hearts of the Mu family members present were not calm at all. Mu Jingxing's face couldn't help but twitch. He tried his best to suppress the resentment in his heart and turned to glare at Arbor, who was sitting on his left. The old ancestor has decided that you should abdicate and hand over the position of clan head. Mu Jingfeng's facial muscles twitched, and he could not help but shout, "Father!" He thought that this decision was Mu Tsang's own decision, and that he was only using the ancestor's name. "You think this is my decision?" Mu Tsang glanced at his son and calmly said, "Back then, after you were kicked out of Chao Yang Pavilion, you left in a fit of anger. Ancestor Chao Yang appeared with us and announced this decision." "I don't agree." Mu Jingfeng's face flushed red. "Arbor's surname isn't Mu." Chapter 36:14. She even abandoned her Mu family's surname. On what basis should she be the head of the household? Mu Jingfeng's face could not help but slightly contort. Elder Qing's expression was complicated. "That's right. Furthermore, the crown princess has only returned to China not long ago. Letting her shoulder the entire Mu family's future. Isn't this too much of a trifling matter? The crown princess is still young. She's not suitable." "That's right. As the imperial family's daughter-in-law, the crown princess will have many trivial matters to attend to in the future. It's not good to bother her with the Mu family's matters." All sorts of voices emerged, but every word was negative toward Arbor's succession as the head of the household. Of course, the decisions made by the head of the household over the years have also harmed the family's interests. In particular, his attitude toward the Long family has also been wrong. "Old family head, you can choose another suitable disciple to inherit the position of the head of the household." "Oh. Who does Elder Fu think is suitable to inherit the position of the head of the household?" Mu Tsang asked coldly as he looked at the elder on his left who was spouting nonsense. "I think Jing Xing is quite suitable." As soon as he said this, Mu Jingxing immediately cupped his hands toward the elder who nominated him. He could not help but smile as he modestly declined, "Elder Fu is too kind. In terms of qualifications, Jing Xing may not be enough. Furthermore, Jing Xing has no intention of stealing Big Brother's limelight." After saying this, he cupped his hands toward the unsightly Mu Jingfeng with a tactful look. Mu Tsang harumphed and abruptly raised his hand to slap the table. "All of you, shut up. Jing Xing, you are indeed not qualified to be the next head of the household." The old man's words instantly made Mu Jingxing's face turn ashen. He understood his father very well. Since his father had completely rejected him, it meant that he had absolutely no hope for the position of the head of the household. It was just that he had to respectfully address Arbor as the head of the household in the future. No matter what, it was hard for him to accept. Thinking of this, Mu Jingxing said with an ugly expression, "Father, although old ancestor Zhao Yang personally named Arbor as the head of the household, but it's clear that this child is still young and inexperienced. She's not suitable to be our Mu family's head in all aspects." "I agree with Jing Xing." "I agree too." Seeing that the whole family was against it, Mu Jingfeng's face, which was as black as the bottom of a pot, looked slightly better. As long as everyone objected in unison and there was no suitable candidate in the family, then for the time being, there would be no change in the position of the family head. Mu Jingxing, this brat, had grown wings in recent years and started to have special ideas. It seemed like it was time to teach him a lesson. Otherwise, he would think that he could surpass his big brother and suppress him in everything he did. With that thought in mind, Mu Jingfeng turned to look at his second brother, and his gaze darkened further. However, in the next second, his expression changed drastically. Old Master Mu Tsang said in a deep voice, "The reason why I gathered you here is not to listen to any of your opinions. Instead, I am informing all of you that I will abide by the ancestors' wishes and let Jing Feng abdicate to Qiao Qiao. You only need to know this clearly. Although old Master Mu's voice was extremely faint, his words, which did not allow anyone to object, were sonorous and forceful. In an instant, he blocked everyone's words. Arbor blinked. As the person involved, she was also a little confused. Head of the household? Her. Chapter 36:15. Did she really not hear wrongly? Did old Master Mu mean that he wanted Mu Jingfeng to abdicate the family head position to her? He even said that this was old ancestor Chaoyang's intention. What was going on? Why did she feel like everything was going out of her control the moment she came out of Chaoyang restaurant? Sir Jojo expressionlessly looked up at Mu Tsang and jumped up from the stool. Before you all discuss this family head position, shouldn't you ask for my opinion first? Everyone turned to look at the young lady, dumbfounded. Opinion? What opinion could you have? What's the matter? You can still have an opinion when the Mu family head position is placed in front of you. Is this still acceptable? Is there still justice in this world? Mu Tsang coughed lightly and turned to look at his little granddaughter. He asked kindly, Jojo, speak. I don't have the slightest interest in the position of the Mu clan's patriarch. Xiao Mu's words instantly set off a storm in the entire hall. Especially Mu Jingxing, who was sitting below her and had just been denied the right to inherit the family head position by old Master Mu's words, could not bear it any longer and jumped up as well. Arbor, don't be too arrogant. Mu Jingxing said angrily. Do you think that the Mu family head position is child's play? Their Mu family was a large aristocratic family with a 1,000-year-old legacy. Among the 6 major aristocratic families of China, they were ranked third. Compared to the Qin estate's wealth and the Duan estate's inheritance, their Mu family was only slightly inferior. What's the matter? How can you, Arbor, be wronged in inheriting the Mu family head position? Mu Jingxing's words resonated with many of the Mu family's descendants. Everyone glared at Miss Chiao as if they were enemies, completely forgetting that they were all in denial and did not want Arbor to inherit the family head position. But now, once they discovered that Arbor simply scoffed at the family head position, they became even more dissatisfied. How old was this little girl? What right did she have to look down on their large aristocratic family with a 1,000-year-old legacy? She really wanted to go to heaven. Arbor glanced at the people around him and curled his lips in annoyance. Just your family. You want me to take over? Keep on dreaming. Look at you motley crew, what kind of people are you? Arbor criticized him mercilessly. To put it nicely, he's an elder of the family and a mainstay of the noble families of inheritance. To put it bluntly, they are a bunch of trash. The little girl did not give him any face and spoke bluntly. Her words caused the expressions of everyone present to change. You! Elder Qing suddenly jumped up from his seat and shouted at the head of the family head, you heard it too. What is this girl talking about? You don't even want to use our Mu family's surname. You're really a traitor. You just don't want to be united with our Mu family. Right. How can such a person inherit the position of the Mu clan's patriarch? Even if it's an order from old ancestor Zhao Yang, I won't accept it. Yes, I'm not convinced. Everyone clamored and slapped the tables, chairs, and benches beside them, making thumping sounds. What, do you feel like your dignity has been insulted? Arbor was not afraid of these people who were fuming with rage and glaring at him, looking as if they wanted to eat him alive. Chapter 36:16. She calmly turned her head and swept a glance around before pointing at Mu Jingxing. You, all day long, think that you're very capable. TSK, in the end, you're short-sighted and only have eyes for the small plot of land in front of you. You only want to use power and tricks to compete with Mu Jingfeng for the family head position. Those who are truly capable should go out and make a name for themselves. Go out and do your own business. You're already so old, yet you only want to inherit the family business and the ancestral property. No wonder the old ancestor looks down on you guys. Look at you guys. Each and every one of you has lived for so long, yet even a teenage child understands reason. You guys, on the other hand, don't understand. The descendants taught are all the same as you guys. Each and every one of you only knows how to raise a fuss at home. If someone comes knocking on your door, do you dare to resist? Just like more than 10 years ago, when your ally, the Long family, was besieged, did you dare to come out and fart? You don't dare, right? If you don't dare, then don't talk nonsense. Ask yourselves honestly. Which one of you who wants to go to Chaoyanglu doesn't want to run there for benefits? Which one of you is truly going there for the purpose of gaining experience? The talismans passed down in the family are missing. Among you guys, how many of you are truly studying talisman arts? You're already so old, yet you're still only an advanced talisman master. Aren't you ashamed? Arbor casually pointed at an elder whose beard and eyebrows were trembling non-stop as she reprimanded. Don't joke around. Seriously, Arbor, can't find any young subordinates. There are so many people in the world who dare to fight, charge, and work hard. If I don't look for them, why would I look for you guys? Why would I want you guys to be a bunch of trash? What can you do by staying by my side? I even find it a waste of my food. She practically didn't catch her breath as she reprimanded them. After speaking, even Sir Jojo herself felt tired. A bunch of fools. What was she wasting her breath on them for? Arbor directly turned and walked out of the main hall. She waved her hand and said, "A plate of loose sand, a motley crew. Whoever wants to be the family head can be. Don't come looking for me. You. How could the elder, who was directly pointed at his nose and asked if he was ashamed, endure such idle anger? He jumped up from his seat and threw an attack talisman at Arbor's back. Old Master Mu, who was sitting at the head of the table, snorted. Stop it. But the talisman had already turned into a streak of light, and the surging talisman energy rushed towards Arbor's back. A frog in a well. Arbor turned her head and moved her finger slightly. A jade talisman jumped out and scattered specks of light in front of her, directly absorbing the opponent's attack talisman. That jade talisman floated in midair, and with Xiao Mu's shout, "Go!" it flew towards that elder whose complexion had turned slightly green with a whoosh. Elder Du! Everyone exclaimed. The jade talisman emitted a strange light, and a surging attack talisman force rushed toward Elder Du's chest. This time, he was sent flying. With a bang, he smashed into the armchair on the left, smashing the poor chair into pieces. He also rolled to the ground, groaning and groaning for a long time, unable to get up. The power of an ant! Arbor shouted and flipped her hand. A jade talisman with a strange light was flicked in front of Elder Du. Freeze. The jade talisman suddenly turned into powder and dissipated in the air. Everyone took a closer look. Oh God, Elder Du was petrified on the ground. Chapter 36:17. When this old man rolled down from the stool, one of his legs was slightly raised, and both his hands were spread open, posing as if he was struggling with all his might. At this moment, he was extremely embarrassed. He was frozen on the spot with this action. His entire facial expression was stiff, and his muscles kept twitching slightly. His pair of turbid old eyes could not help but spew out flames. Arbor couldn't be bothered to look at this old man. He directly turned around and left without saying a word. Family head. 3 elders walked in from the door and turned to look in the direction the little fellow left. Sigh, first elder, second elder, third elder, you're finally here. Mu Tsang smiled bitterly as he stood up from his seat. You all saw the situation just now. Mu Tsang sighed. Old ancestors' wishes cannot be disobeyed. See if there's any way to resolve this matter. The muscles on Mu Jingfeng's cheeks trembled slightly, and he couldn't help but blurt out, Father. Jingfeng. Old Master Mu raised his hand slightly to stop him from speaking. He glanced at him and said, I've already decided on this matter. This is old ancestors' order. It's not something you or I can casually change. Mu Jingfeng clenched his fists tightly, trying his best to restrain his trembling anger. Father, but you saw it too. What kind of attitude was that? She simply criticized our entire Mu family from top to bottom until we're completely worthless. Third elder Mu Jingyuan couldn't help but interject coldly, could it be that what she said was wrong? A plate of loose sand. Mu Jingyuan turned around and left as well. Only a group of furious elders, as well as Mu Jingxing and the rest, who were so angry that their entire bodies hurt, were left behind. As for Mu Xingchen, he had already silently stood up and walked to the door when his sister flared up. After his sister left, he had already left with her. At this moment, the two siblings were walking to the Mu family's mountain entrance and conversing softly. Sister, you should reconsider, Mu Xingchen said with a wry smile. Although the Mu family has indeed been in a mess these years, the Mu family is still very powerful. Although the old ancestor has placed such high hopes on you, why don't talk about it, big brother. Arbor wrinkled his little nose, looking unhappy. That old man tricked me. He said that he would give Chaoyang restaurant to me, that he would not take a single cent, and that he would definitely not give me any missions. Look, he's already asking me for a reward. What a shameless old man, a big liar. Sir Jojo angrily turned his little head away and walked towards the Mu family's mountain gate. I don't care about your family's matters. A bunch of useless things, and a bunch of idiots who only know how to eat and do nothing. With that, Arbor looked at his elder brother sympathetically. Big brother, look at the elders in your family. Other than that elder Dao, who had at least entered the yellow grade Great Symbol Master realm. What kind of people were the rest of them? You can't even compare to the Mu family of a side branch. It must have been hard for Big Brother to stay in such a house all these years. As a genius, there were many things that he had to do. Normally, he must have been ordered around by those useless elders. In the Mu family, the Elders Guild was considered to be an existence that transcended the family members. Ha! As Xiao Mu spoke, she revealed a disdainful expression, evidently looking down on the Mu clan's council of elders to the extreme. Mu Xingchen couldn't help but sigh. He didn't know what to say to change his little sister's opinion. Chapter 36:18. His little sister's originally expressionless face was now filled with blatant disdain. Mu Xingchen really felt a bit uncomfortable when he saw this. The enmity between his little sister and the Mu family really couldn't be easily resolved in a short period of time, alright? It must have been difficult for the old ancestor to come up with such a rotten idea, insisting that his little sister take over the Mu family and become the next family head. Not only was this a slap to his father, Mu Jingfeng's face, but it was also a slap to the faces of all the Mu family's disciples. The Mu family's elders naturally wouldn't allow a little girl to lead their Mu family. Although the old patriarch was there to suppress them, after all suppressing them for a while was suppressing them, but it couldn't be suppressing them forever. Arbor looked up at his elder brother and harumphed. What's the use of having a bunch of good-for-nothings? Mu Xingchen didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He couldn't help but rub his little sister's head and chuckle helplessly. Okay, then let's not talk about this. Jojo, before he could finish his sentence, he was interrupted by a sharp cry. Arbor. Following the sound of hurried rolling wheels, it was Concubine Sure, who appeared extremely haggard in a wheelchair. It had been a long time since he last saw this woman at New South Garden. He didn't know if this woman had been enlightened recently, but she had been very well behaved and staying in her own court. She ate vegetarian and recited Buddhist scriptures, as if she had converted to Buddhism, as if she was completely aloof from worldly affairs. Arbor swept a glance at her, his expression indifferent, but he didn't speak first. Instead, he waited for the flustered and exasperated Sherhuaishin to speak first. She must have come because of the banishment of her 2 daughters. Arbor didn't even need to guess to know why this Sherhuaishin had come. Sherhuaishin hurriedly turned her wheelchair to Arbor. She struggled to sit up straight in the wheelchair and moved her body to the ground. The wheelchair lost its gravity and instantly tilted to the side. Sherhuaishin fell to the ground and repeatedly kowtowed to Arbor, crying out in a tearful voice, Crown Princess, I beg you. Please let my 2 daughters go. They didn't do anything outrageous to offend you. They are so insignificant and lowly. You are the Crown Princess, why must you be so calculative with 2 concubine daughters and refuse to forgive them? Mu Xingchen stared coldly at Sherhuaishin and said indifferently, Concubine Sher, what are you doing here? This matter had nothing to do with his sister. The decision to send Mu Rou Yen and Mu Rou Yun to the branch family for training was made by the elder ancestor. It was also grandfather who agreed to it. It has nothing to do with sister at all. Sherhuaishin's face twisted in an instant. Her legs were inconvenient, so she could only crawl forward a few steps and try her best to grab Arbor's little foot. Crown Princess, please forgive Rou Yen and Rou Yun. I only have these 2 daughters, you can't destroy them both. They are only your 2 concubine sisters. They have been spoiled by me since they were young. They don't have any ability and can't fight with you. Let them go, don't banish them out of the imperial capital. Mu Xingchen's expression instantly turned even uglier. A concubine mother was kneeling and crying for mercy, begging Jojo to let go of his 2 concubine sisters. It made it seem like Jojo had really persecuted his 2 concubine sisters. Chapter 36:19. What good would this reputation do if it were to spread? This Sherhuaishin was truly a source of disaster. Murderous intent flashed across his eyes as he said coldly, Aunt Sher, if you still don't get up, I'll get someone to carry you out. Sherhuaishin's outstretched claws naturally failed to grab Arbor's little feet as she wished. Xiao Mu took a step back and expressionlessly looked down at Concubine Sher. She said dryly, Concubine Sher, you should have heard eldest brother's words just now. Your 2 daughters' fate has nothing to do with me. No. It's not like that. Concubine Sher had set her sights on Xiao Mu, so she quickly crawled forward and kowtowed repeatedly. She cried out mournfully, Crown Prince Consort, as long as you open your mouth to forgive the 2 of them, I believe that old Sir will definitely deal with this matter at his discretion. In the end, Sherhuaishin was threatening and enticing her to plead with the old master. How hilarious! Where did this Sherhuaishin get the nerve to think that she, Arbor, would be so foolish as to plead with the old master? Just for Mu Ruyan and Mu Royun, that pair of brainless sisters? She even had to sell her face to plead with the old master? Ha! Arbor couldn't help but sneer inwardly. Do you think that if you cry in front of me, I will definitely be led by the nose by you because I want to gain a good reputation? Arbor said coldly to Sherhuaishin, do you know that in the entire sovereign capital, no one dares to spread rumors about the crown princess? Don't do such a senseless thing. Arbor said coldly, your 2 daughters were sent away by the old master's order. It has nothing to do with me. I also won't plead with the old master for your daughters. After all, me and them, heh. She ended the conversation with a mocking laugh. She walked around Sherhuaishin and was about to walk forward. A vicious glint flashed across Shi Huixin's eyes as she cried out sternly, "Didn't you want to know who secretly colluded with the Shantian Prefecture's mansion lord and went to the lower star region to harm you and your daughter? You know very well that this is definitely not something I can do." Shi Huixin screamed. "I know who it is. I know who Shantian Prefecture's Prefecture Lord Geng Pengcheng is truly working for. As long as you're willing to plead on my two daughters' behalf and allow them to stay in the imperial capital, I can tell you." Shi Huixin screamed with a stiff neck. His eyes were filled with resentment and desperation for the last fight. She was betting on what Arbor was thinking. Her two daughters carried everything she relied on in this life. If they were sent to a remote branch family, it would be very difficult for her to see them again in the future when she wanted to return to the capital. How could she let such a thing happen? Just like this, Qiao Mu's pitch-black eyes stared unblinkingly at Shi Huixin. It was as if he was looking into the depths of her soul. Shi Huixin couldn't help but tremble slightly. "Speak." Arbor stared coldly at the woman. "Tell me everything you know. Do you think the Shantian Prefecture's mansion lord is truly protecting me?" "No." Shi Huixin's eyes revealed traces of anger. "Feng Lan, the Shantian Prefecture's mansion lord's wife, identified you before she died," Arbor said coldly. "You should know Feng Lan." Chapter 36:20. After all, you're from the same organization, so you should have come into contact with each other. What organization? Don't spout nonsense. Now that things have come to this, it'll be pointless if you don't tell the truth. Arbor's cold gaze swept over her. Shi Huixin, you dare to say that you're not from Tianyun? If you weren't targeting me on purpose, why did you already welcome Qiao Yingchen back when I first came to the Divine Province, planning to replace my identity and ruin my reputation? Then, you deliberately brought Qiao Yingchen to General Zhong Li's estate. Wasn't it to mislead everyone into thinking that Qiao Yingchen, who was impersonating Mu Qiao, was such an unpresentable thing? Shantian Prefecture's Prefecture Lord said it before. He's also helping someone, and the person he's helping doesn't want me to have a good life. And it's precisely because every single thing you've done these past few days, every single one of them, that you don't want me to have a good life. Wasn't it also you who incited Juxian and Mei Xian to climb through the window and lay their hands on my husband? And that second-rank lass Xiao Xing, she turned into a corpse in the woodshed. I've come into contact with you before, but you still don't admit that you're from Tianyun. Other than Tianyun, I can't think of anyone else who can turn a perfectly fine person into a corpse in a matter of minutes. Don't you think so, concubine Shi? When Arbor said these words, he didn't look at his big brother's shocked gaze. Mu Xingchen stared coldly at concubine Shi, who was kneeling on the ground, and kicked her hard. Is what my sister said true? You really are from Tianyun. You're from Tianyun. Tianyun's people had already infiltrated their Mu family. Do you think I did all of this? Shi Huixin screamed and suddenly straightened her body. Her head was raised high, and her pair of inverted dead fish eyes stared lifelessly at Arbor. She said word by word, Feng Lan, that slut, does whatever she says count? How many times have I met Geng Pengcheng? How did it reach the point where Geng Pengcheng would die for me? She's slandering me. Geng Pengcheng is also slandering me. Ha, you're just a little concubine mother of the Mu family. You don't step out of the house all day long. How could you have met the Shantian Prefecture's Prefecture Lord? This is where the biggest problem lies. You really are one of Tianyun's people. Arbor pointed at Shi Huixin, who was lying on the ground, and said coldly. Before this, she only had her suspicions and wasn't sure. Now, he could truly confirm that Shi Huixin belonged to the heavens. Shi Huixin. Qiao Mu uttered these 3 words coldly. Tell me everything you know, and I guarantee that your two daughters will live well for the rest of their lives. Sure Huixin's body trembled slightly, then she raised her head and glared at Arbor. Gung Pengcheng is a very careful person. I only heard that the person he admires is the whole master of flying heaven. However, the people in the organization usually don't have many opportunities to meet each other. That's why I don't know who the Soaring Heavens Hall's Hall Master is. Ah. When Shi Huixin said this, she suddenly spasmed on the ground as if she had gone mad. Just as Mu Xingchen was about to rush forward, Xiao Mu tugged at him and pulled him back 2 steps. Shi Huixin knelt on the ground and scratched her face with all her might, letting out terrifying screams. Chapter 36-21. Shi Huixin's appearance made one's heart tremble. At this very moment, she no longer had the appearance of a noble lady. Her hands were covering her face as she fell sideways on the ground. Her body was curled up as she kept twitching and trembling, as if she had suddenly contracted some sort of illness. This was the main passageway through the Mu family's mountain gate, so Shi Huixin's unforeseen event naturally attracted many people's attention. Mu Jingfeng, Mu Jingxing, and the rest, who came after hearing the news, were even more shocked as they glared at Arbor. Mu Jingfeng sternly shouted, "Arbor, you actually treat your concubine mother like this? What kind of enmity or grudge do you have for you to be so vicious to a woman like her? Father! Don't spout nonsense and venomous slander." Mu Xingchen immediately retorted in dissatisfaction, "Little sister and I just arrived here when concubine mother ran over on her own. She suddenly became like this while we were talking. What does it have to do with little sister?" When Mu Jingfeng saw how his son was defending Arbor in every way, he immediately rebuked, "Unfilial son." He actually said that his own father was venomous slandering. Was this something a son should say? Arbor wasn't angry, though. She had long known what kind of person Mu Jingfeng was. Once something happened, if he wasn't blaming this, he would blame that. There wasn't the slightest bit of father-daughter kinship in his heart. For such a selfish man, he probably only had himself in his heart. "Madam, watch your step." Servant Song Lu also rushed to the scene while supporting Mu Qingya, who had rushed all the way here. At this moment, the road leading to the Mu family's mountain gate was filled with a group of Mu family disciples, as well as many servants who didn't mind the commotion. These people hid far away in the corners, not daring to approach, but their eyes flickered with gossipy glints. Concubine Shi went to talk to the crown princess about something, but in the end, this tragic scene suddenly appeared. Everyone naturally didn't believe that this matter had nothing to do with the crown princess. Arbor couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with them. He waved his hand and said to his elder brother, "Big brother, let's go." Mu Xingchen nodded in agreement. He also felt that talking to these people was like playing the lute to a cow. It was impossible to make things clear. Since they liked to think too much, then just let them be. After making up his mind, Mu Xingchen was about to leave with Arbor. However, how could Mu Jingfeng let them leave just like that? Mu Jingfeng waved his hand in front of Qiao Mu's face as he declared with a darkened face, "Qiao Mu, in any case, you are still a child of the Mu clan. Don't rely on your status as the crown prince consort to do as you please. You poisoned your own concubine mother. Even if this matter is reported to His Majesty, you still won't be able to justify it. Hand over the antidote," Mu Jingfeng growled. "Master." Mu Qingya hurriedly stepped forward and stood in front of Arbor. She shook her head and said, "Jojo won't do that. There must be something fishy about concubine Shi's matter. You're still speaking up for her at a time like this." Mu Jingfeng glared at Mu Qingya angrily. Just now, the three of them were talking here. Everyone saw it with their own eyes. Everything was fine, but concubine Shi suddenly became like this, "Ah, eldest uncle, look, look." Mu Ruian couldn't help but exclaim. Everyone turned to look, and they couldn't help but be startled. They saw that concubine Shi abruptly put down her hand that was covering her face. Chapter 36-22. This time, everyone couldn't help but be shocked. They saw that concubine Shi's face had already completely rotted, oozing a terrifying thick juice. As if it had been corroded by some kind of venom, her face was disappearing inch by inch in this liquid. Mu Jingfeng couldn't help but avert his gaze in disgust. He turned to glare at Arbor and shouted, "Arbor! You really have such vicious thoughts. Such vicious methods. No matter what, your concubine Shi is still your concubine mother and your elder. Even if your words were a bit offensive, you can't use such methods to harm a woman with a low cultivation. Do you still have a conscience? Do you have any sense of shame?" Mu Jingfeng shouted angrily, not caring about how many people were present. Currently, he was glaring at Arbor with eyes that seemed to have been dipped in venom. It was as if he wasn't staring at his daughter, but at his life's most deadly enemy. Arbor, however, coldly swept a glance at him and sneered, "Then, do you want to kill me, sister?" Mu Xingqian couldn't help but panic. His sister's indifferent attitude was as if she was casually accused by her father and couldn't be bothered to defend herself. As her eldest brother, he naturally didn't want to see his sister suffer such a great injustice and be forced to bear the infamy of killing her concubine mother. "Father, you'd better be careful with your words and actions. Don't make wild accusations," Mu Xingqian angrily said. "We siblings only spoke with concubine Shi for a few minutes." During this time, sister didn't even touch concubine Shi's finger. For concubine Shi to be like this, it must be because she was already poisoned long ago. It just so happened that the poison acted up right in front of us. Sophistry. Mu Jingfeng angrily berated, "Xingqian, you've disappointed father too much. You're the Mu family's young master, the Mu family's future hope. If it weren't for the ancestors' previous matter, the entire Mu family would have been inherited by you in the future." Mu Xingqian's gaze turned extremely cold as he coldly stared at his father in front of him. He sneered, "Father, you don't need to sow discord. I'm not like you, having a strong desire to control the Mu family's power. I'm a member of the Mu family. If the Mu family is in trouble, I will not shirk my responsibility. However, I don't care about the position of patriarch at all. Therefore, I have no objections to younger sister becoming the patriarch," Mu Xingqian said with a flat tone and a cold expression. This father of his was too vicious. For the sake of the patriarch's position, he actually did not hesitate to sow discord between him and his younger sister. Did he think that by promising the position of the young master and the position of the future patriarch, he would be able to make him fearful of his sister and fight with his sister for the position of the patriarch so that he, as the father, could benefit from it? He was simply too naive. Mu Jingfeng's eyes emitted a cold and venomous glint as he stared fixedly at his son for a long time before bursting into laughter. "You're overthinking things, Stardust." Seeing that he was unable to provoke his son, Mu Jingfeng could not help but frown and coldly say, "A real man must act with a clear conscience. Although she is your biological sister, it is very unwise to lie and deceive your relatives and elders for her sake." The corners of Arbor's lips curled up mockingly. Look, this was her biological father, racking his brains to pin the infamy of poisoning a concubine mother on her. Chapter 36-23. What a great father he was. "Ao Yi." Arbor calmly called out to him. Ao Yi giggled as he flashed to her side. "Crown Princess." He turned to look at Mu Jingfeng's group and gave them a sympathetic look. "Family head Mu, oh, no, former family head Mu. If you can prove that this matter has nothing to do with the Crown Princess, shouldn't you kneel down and admit your mistake, Mu Jingfeng's old face abruptly flushed red as he sneered. Ha, prove it first before talking about anything else. Yi tilted his head and giggled as he took out a jade talisman from his pocket. Everyone, look carefully. What is this? This is a jade talisman with an image. It's also an earth-rank talisman that only our crown princess can make. The moment Yi took out the jade talisman, Mu Jingfeng's expression involuntarily changed. Yi did not make everyone wait for long, nor did he give them a chance to react. He directly projected the image from the jade talisman for everyone to see. In it, concubine Shi came over in a wheelchair and immediately knelt on the ground to plead for leniency. Everyone could clearly hear the conversation between the two sides, and the image was also very clear. Everyone could not help but sneak a glance at the expressionless little crown princess. Just how distrustful was the crown princess to the Mu family? She always had her subordinates carry jade talismans with them at all times. As long as the Mu family approached, they would immediately record everything. When the time came, they would have a basis to speak on. From the start, she felt that there were no good people in the Mu family, so she must have something to protect herself when she was outside. What was there to be unclear about in this video? After the crown princess exposed Shi Huixin's identity as a member of Tianyun, Shi Huixin suddenly fell to the ground and covered her face as she cried out in pain. From beginning to end, the crown princess was just as the Mu family's eldest young master had said. She did not even touch Shi Huixin with a single finger, so how could she have poisoned her? Everyone silently glanced at Mu Jingfeng, who was still spouting nonsense just now. At this moment, he had already fallen silent, his expression cold and not saying a word. Yi raised his chin slightly, and several youths in black immediately jumped down from the tree and surrounded Mu Jingfeng. Two of them even kicked his knees, as if they were determined to make him kneel and apologize. What are you all doing? Mu Jingfeng flew into a rage. The members of the Mu family also started to make a ruckus. Even if Mu Jingfeng had been stripped of his position as the head of the household, he was still the former head of the Mu family. Their Mu family was humiliated like this, no one would be able to feel proud. Naturally, they couldn't just sit by and watch. Mu Qingya even pounced forward and tightly grasped Mu Jingfeng's arm. She turned to look at Qiao Qiao and implored mournfully, "Qiao Qiao, your father didn't mean to say those words just now." Yeah, he didn't do it on purpose. He did it on purpose. Using every possible method to pin the crime of poisoning my concubine mother onto this crown prince consort. To be slandered by a subject. Does this crown princess have a reason to teach him a lesson? Crown princess. Mu Qingya shrieked and hurriedly stood in front of Mu Jingfeng. Heaven, earth, sovereign, family, and master are indeed inviolable. But the head of the household is still your biological father. Why, if you insist on going against the law, why you'll be punished by the heavens. I don't want to see you get struck by lightning. It's not worth it. Mu Qingya shook her head vigorously at Arbor with tears in her eyes. Chapter 36-24. Arbor suddenly laughed. Everyone was stunned by this smile. That was because this child rarely smiled. Ever since she returned to the Mu family, she had never smiled at anyone from the Mu family. However, she suddenly laughed today, causing everyone's hair to stand on end. Heavenly punishment. If the heavens truly have a spirit, such a filthy and ugly soul should have died 10,000 times already, no? Her ice-cold voice was like the unmelted snow in the abyss, coldly drenching everyone's hearts. Let's give it a try. If the heavens come to strike me, I'll endure it. If it doesn't come, ha 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 ha. Arbor laughed out loud with a wanton expression. She raised her small hand slightly, and the crowd of black-clothed youths pressed down on Mu Jingfeng, who was struggling to move his limbs, and dragged him to the side of a tree. After tying this fellow to the tree, Yi pulled out a shiny black whip and personally punished him. According to the laws of China, those who slander and defame the imperial family will be whipped 100 times as a warning to others. Smack! A whip as swift as lightning landed heavily on Mu Jingfeng's body. Ah! Mu Jingfeng howled on the spot. His eyes revealed traces of cold light as he glared at Arbor. You ordered your father to be whipped. Mu Jingfeng's muscles trembled non-stop. He tried his best to pull out a defensive talisman from his inner world, but Aoyi restrained him. You devoid of conscience, you evil woman. The heavens won't let you off. Mu Jingfeng angrily rebuked. As he spoke, the sky seemed as though it was really going to rain lightning. Dark clouds gathered in the sky, and a faint rumble of thunder could be heard. The heavens. Arbor sneered and slowly raised his head to look at the rolling dark clouds in the sky. Let's see who it will strike. In the blink of an eye, a rolling thunder suddenly fell from the clouds and abruptly landed on the stupefied Mu Jingfeng, causing all the hair on his body to stand on end. Following that, several whips landed, giving him no time to react. Ah! Mu Jingfeng could only let out a shrill scream. Arbor laughed heartily as he calmly looked at the man in front of him. His gaze slowly turned cold and resolute. Mu Jingfeng. Now you know. Who does the heavenly Tao want to destroy? It's because of you, the one who disregarded the emperor, the one who obliterated family and humanity, the one who's worse than pigs and dogs trash. Jojo, don't, Jojo. Mu Qingya wanted to rush forward, but Song Lu and Nanny Chiu grabbed her arms tightly. Heavens, even with master's cultivation, he was almost unable to withstand the lightning and whips, let alone a defenseless person like Madame. Xiao Mu expressionlessly glanced at Mu Qingya, who was displaying a deeply affectionate expression, and pursed her lips. So what if such an ignorant and cowardly man dies? You can just remarry. What's there to be reluctant about, humph? Everyone stared at her, dumbfounded. He felt that the young lady did not see Mu Jingfeng as her father at all. She did not even see him as a human being. So what if he dies? She even instigated Mu Qingya to remarry. Was this something a daughter should say? Arbor swept a glance at everyone before turning to walk out of the crowd. He coldly lowered his head to look at Shi Huixin, who had already turned into a puddle of water, and coldly instructed, go search concubine Shi's courtyard. Didn't she say that she left something good for me? Everyone present looked at the young lady before them with various expressions. Chapter 36-25. This time, all of them once again experienced the little lady's heart as cold as iron. At the same time, they also looked strangely at concubine Shi's puss. In the video just now, concubine Shi admitted that she was a member of Heavenly Fate, but they didn't hear concubine Shi say that she left behind evidence for the crown princess. Could it be that the crown princess was still on guard? The video she showed them was simply only a part of it, and some important information was still missing, so it wasn't exposed in front of people at all. Several elders stood on the side and glanced hesitantly at Arbor. At this very moment, no one dared to obstruct Arbor's departure. Unless they really wanted to die themselves. By the time Mu Tsang rushed over, Mu Jingfeng had already been whipped 100 times, and 3 thunderbolts fell from the sky, completely knocking Mu Jingfeng out. With lingering fear, everyone couldn't help but sympathize with the previous family head. Because Arbor still had things to do, he temporarily returned to the Mu family's residence, Jade Orchid Court. As soon as he entered, his expression completely darkened. Mu Xingqian also said gravely, Jojo, looks like Heavenly Fate's people were already on guard and made the first move. The poison in Concubine Sher's body can actually be remotely controlled. This means, it's not poison. Arbor interrupted his older brother gravely. It's a talisman. It's one of the highest standards among sickness talismans and can cause a person to die and rot instantly. A sharp glint flashed through Sir Jojo's eyes. I know that there's always been a great talisman master in Heavenly Fate. And this talisman master might not just be a talisman master. He's a poison master. These people appeared on Seacombe Planet a long time ago. The three pygmy brothers all know how to use poison, especially that black cat brother. He once gave Mu Qianqian a soul-swapping talisman. After arriving at Shuntian Prefecture, Clear Sky Faction's disciple Tan Fa was a yellow-ranked talisman master during the entrance exam of a top-notch academy. He and that Fan Gu both belong to Clear Sky Faction. At the same time, they both have transportation talisman matrices. None of them want me to have a good life. All of them want me to live a life worse than death. In the past, I even suspected that Mu Jingruo wanted to deal with me. Now, it seems that the teleportation array might not belong to your Mu family. The Heavenly Fate Empire's foundation is extremely deep. It's not strange that it has a teleportation array. This Grand Charm Master and Poison Master must be closely related to the Black Cat and Tan Fa. During the 6 Prefectures Academy tournament, it was his disciple who poisoned Xiaoguo and his group with puppet charms. Although these small fries were dealt with by me and Lotus at that time. However, this Poison Master has always been hiding behind the scenes. Even now, we still don't know who he is. He's been hiding all this time, secretly cultivating batch after batch of talisman talents for Tian Yun. Those charm masters of the Clear Sky sect were also created by him, which means that he has a deep relationship with the Clear Sky sect. Although the Clear Sky sect doesn't belong to the Heavenly Fate Empire, there's bound to be some kind of connection between them. It's just that we don't know about it yet. When Mu Xingchen heard about the Heavenly Fate Empire, he had also heard Mo Lian mention the ins and outs of the matter. Although he might not be clear about the details, he could still understand the gist of it. This Clear Sky sect was determined to make things difficult for Jojo. Now, it seemed that the Clear Sky sect was indeed closely related to the Heavenly Fate Empire. Chapter 36-26. Perhaps the Clear Sky sect is a branch of the Heavenly Fate organization. Or perhaps the Clear Sky sect is a faction controlled by an important member of the Heavenly Fate organization. Xiao Mu turned her head and nodded at her eldest brother. Her eyes flickered as she stared deeply at Mu Xingchen and suddenly changed the topic. Big brother, what evidence do you think Shi Huixin left for us? Do you think we can trust her words? Mu Xingchen's expression didn't change at all. He stared at Arbor's bright eyes for less than half a second before answering logically, I think we can trust her. Since she wanted to protect her 2 daughters, of course she wouldn't dare to hide anything from us. After all, Jojo can control the future and life of her 2 daughters, can't he? Arbor nodded coldly and sat down with one hand on the table, expressing her complete agreement with her brother's words. Clang! She threw a few pieces of broken jade talismans on the table and looked at them with cold eyes. She muttered, the lightning guiding talisman is quite powerful. Mu Jingfeng, you deserve this. Given Mu Jingfeng's strength, the 3 bolts of lightning would definitely destroy more than half of his meridians. If he wanted to slowly recover, it would take at least 1.5 years. Not everyone was like Jojo, able to withstand lightning strikes and be hit by the heavens not long after. Yi hurried over with a group of people. He cupped his hands at Arbor and said, we've found the crown princess. Xiao Mu's face warmed, and she nodded lightly at him. She extended her small hand to accept the crumpled letter Yi handed over. After skimming through it, Arbor's expression turned serious. She handed the letter to Yi. Go and make the arrangements. We must make contact with her tonight. Yes. Aoye bowed with the letter in his hand. He waved his hand and hurriedly led a group of purple forest guards out to make the arrangements. Crown Princess, are you not going back to the Qiao residence tonight? Kai Xiu asked in a low voice. Arbor nodded solemnly. Send a message to my mother. I have something important to do tonight. Inside the Golden Garden, Mu Jingfeng sprawled on the brocade couch like a puddle of mud, groaning for quite a while. It was almost 10 o'clock in the evening, and the setting sun shone through the window, making people a little dizzy. Mu Jingfeng reached out to punch the couch as he yelled angrily, "Where are they? Where did they all die to?" Master. Nanny Chiu hurriedly ran in with the two young maidservants. Song Lu was holding a bowl of freshly brewed medicine. Master. Let me do it. Mu Qingya walked in from the door and nodded at Nanny Chiu and the others. You may leave first. Madam. Go down, Mu Qingya ordered. Nanny Chiu and the others looked at each other, then hurriedly put down the medicine bowl and left one by one. Only the groaning Mu Jingfeng and the silent Mu Qingya were left in the room. Water. I want to drink water. Water. Mu Jingfeng turned his head with all his might and glared at his wife. Could it be that his wife was still in shock from what happened earlier? Even her movements were slower than usual, which displeased Mu Jingfeng. Master, the water is here. Mu Qingya brought a bowl of tea to Mu Jingfeng's lips. Mu Jingfeng took a sip from the tea bowl and yelled as he forcefully swatted away Mu Qingya's hand. The teacup fell to the ground with a thud. Chapter 36-27. Mu Jingfeng's sharp reprimand abruptly rang out in the room. Wicked woman. This water is so hot, how can someone drink it? Mu Qingya sighed and got up to pour another cup. She brought it to Mu Jingfeng and carefully blew on it. Old master, it's already cold. Mu Jingfeng leaned over and carefully took a sip. Feeling that there was no problem, he gulped down 2 mouthfuls. This unfilial daughter. Right now, half of his meridians were crippled, and he was paralyzed like a cripple. He didn't even have the slightest bit of strength in his limbs, so how could he not be furious? Old master, it's also because you've overdone it that Cao Cao resisted. Mu Qingya sighed. She picked up the medicine bowl at the side and gracefully walked to Mu Jingfeng's side. She half helped him up and leaned him against the couch. Holding a spoon in one hand, she meticulously stirred the medicinal concoction in the bowl with a very focused gaze. However, Mu Jingfeng was dissatisfied with her defending Arbor again. He couldn't help but angrily say, "You've always been protecting her and smoothing things over for her. You've never been this attentive to Rochuan before." Mu Qingya glanced at him and concentrated on stirring the medicinal concoction in her hand. Old master, I know you're angry. If you didn't say that Jojo poisoned concubine Sure earlier, Jojo wouldn't have ordered you to be whipped because of this. You're still talking. Mu Jingfeng slapped the couch and angrily roared, even if I, as her father, wronged her, I didn't do it on purpose. I just didn't understand the situation for a moment. Couldn't she have explained it to me properly? Why did she have to come up and whip me? Is this the attitude a daughter should have toward her father? Drink the medicine. Mu Qingya held the medicine bowl and sat beside him. However, Mu Jingfeng raised half of his body and coldly said, I'm not drinking it. What's the use of drinking this medicine? It can't heal my meridians, can it? Go invite that god-tier alchemist, Alchemist Dan, over tomorrow. Have her treat me. Alchemist Dan reportedly left the city a while ago and hasn't returned. What? Then go invite another alchemist over for me. No matter how much it costs, you must heal my messed up meridians as soon as possible. You should drink this medicine first. I said I won't drink. Take it away. Mu Jingfeng impatiently pushed her hand away. Mu Qingya was holding a bowl of medicine, and when he pushed it, most of the medicine spilled out onto her palm. Although it wasn't very hot, Mu Qingya's face gradually darkened. She suddenly raised her hand and threw the remaining half bowl of medicine, along with the other bowl, at Mu Jingfeng's face. Mu Jingfeng yelled and waved his hand to wipe the medicine off his face before throwing the bowl on the floor. After the crisp sound, Mu Jingfeng glared at Mu Qingya, his eyes almost spitting fire. Bitch! Are you trying to rebel? How dare you treat me like this? Are you looking down on me now? Although I've been stripped of my position as the patriarch and half of my meridians have been crippled, I'm still not someone a slut like you can wantonly trample on. Mu Jingfeng, you're always like this. If anything happens, it's someone else's fault. Once something doesn't go your way, you'll immediately adopt this vile attitude. Do you think you're still that high and mighty patriarch Mu? Do you think you still have a chance to turn things around in this lifetime? Chapter 36-28. I worked so hard to take care of you, yet you don't know how to be grateful and even treat me like this? Mu Jingfeng, you're truly disgusting, Mu Qingya suddenly said expressionlessly. These words were clearly not something the current Mu family head could bear. All these years, what he was most proud of was becoming the Mu family's head and having a beautiful wife in his arms. Even though he was nearing his 40s, he was still elegant and graceful. Which woman would not praise him as a handsome man when they saw him? In this world, there was really no one who would say that he was truly disgusting. Mu Jingfeng stared intently at Mu Qingya in front of him, as if wanting to see a trace of other emotions in her eyes. Unfortunately, there was nothing. Other than a few traces of disdain, indifference, and mockery toward him in her eyes, there was really nothing else. But how could he see these emotions in the eyes of his wife who had been with him for so many years? For a moment, Mu Jingfeng really suspected that he might have gone crazy and was seeing things. Qingya, she had never, ever revealed such emotions toward him. In his heart, Qingya had always been a docile, gentle, and obedient woman. She was very perfect and completely met his requirements for a wife. He did not like women who were too strong. He, Mu Jingfeng, liked women like Qingya who were gentle, tactful, and obedient to him for the rest of their lives. Speaking of which, Long Chuyun's temperament was the complete opposite. She was strong-willed, tenacious, and liked to handle everything alone. She was so strong that he almost felt a kind of pressure. And now, how did his wife, who had always been perfect, suddenly become like this? Was the mockery in her eyes really directed at him, Mu Jingfeng? Qingya. Mu Jingfeng could not help but call out. He forced himself to straighten his body and suppressed the anger in his heart with a perplexed expression. What's wrong with you? Mu Qingya seemed to have been provoked to a critical point by him, and all of a sudden, all of her emotions exploded. I said that you're disgusting. Don't you understand? Mu Qingya coldly stared at Mu Jingfeng and sternly shouted, I'm disgusted with you, Mu Jingfeng. I've always been disgusted with you all these years. You. Ever since the day you ruined my innocence, I've been disgusted with you all the time. Mu Jingfeng's eyes widened in shock as he looked at his wife in disbelief. You. What did you say? Disgusting. His wife, who had been with him for so many years, actually said that she was disgusting to him. On what basis? The slightly distorted face of the woman in front of him had completely overshadowed the gentle look on her face in the past. Gradually, he felt that the person in front of him had become very blurry and unfamiliar. Who are you? You are not my Qingya. Mu Qingya couldn't help but sneer at him. I've always been like this. Mu Jingfeng, you've always lived in your own world. You've never truly opened your eyes to clearly see the people around you. You're already in this state, why are you still pretending to be a big shot in front of me? You might be a cripple in the future. Shut up. Mu Jingfeng angrily yelled, smashing a small wooden table beside him with a slap. Mu Qingya's expression changed slightly as she looked at the shattered pieces of the small table. She took a few steps back and coldly said to Mu Jingfeng, "It's all your fault." Chapter 36-29. You vicious and heartless man. Serves you right that even your own daughter treats you this way. When I found out that you were engaged to someone else, I immediately distanced myself from you. I kept my distance from you. But even so, you still refused to let me off. You barged into my court, disregarded my wishes, and took me for your own. You made me bear your children. You made me bear the burden of the entire Mu family and all these trivial matters for so many years. You even made me earn money to support the family and help you take care of your harem of concubines. Why you all make me feel disgusted. Sometimes, I'm constantly thinking that if I had made a prompt decision back then and left this damn family, my life right now wouldn't be like it is now. Mu Jingfeng. Do you know how much I hate and disgust you? A person like you is selfish and heartless. You only have your own interests in your eyes. You've lived in your own world all your life. You've never really thought about others. What right do you have to make others sincerely treat you like this? Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Mu Jingfeng screamed in shock, wishing that he could smash the bed into smithereens. Bitch, bitch. Mu Jingfeng struggled to get up from the bed, but his meridians were in a mess, and his limbs were not under his brain's control. The moment he moved, his entire body fell off the bed. He glared at Mu Qingya in front of him and suddenly took out a talisman with a flip of his hand, throwing it in her direction. Bitch. Do all of you hate that you can't let me die? Fine, fine, fine. Since you don't want me to have an easy time, I'll make all of you not have an easy time either. Following this, Mu Jingfeng threw out a yellow talisman with all his might and shouted, "Activate the talisman." A ferocious attack from the talisman headed for Mu Qingya's chest. Nanny Chiu and the others, who had heard the commotion, hurriedly barged in and cried out in alarm as they rushed forward. Bang! 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 The attack from the talisman knocked them away one by one, and by the time it landed on Mu Qingya's body, its attack power was already more or less depleted. Therefore, she didn't suffer any serious injuries. She only fell to the ground, and her face was pale with fright. Bitch. Mu Jingfeng angrily reprimanded. He slid to the ground and struggled to get up. Unfortunately, with his current strength, it seemed difficult to do so. Therefore, he crawled forward a few steps, struggled with all his might, and threw himself onto Mu Qingya. The man pinned Mu Qingya under his body and grabbed her neck with both hands. At this moment, Mu Jingfeng's face was flushed red, and his eyeballs were bulging out. It was as if his entire body was being roasted by a raging fire. He gripped Mu Qingya's throat tightly and shouted, "Bitch, you bitch. You actually said that I'm disgusted. Back then, weren't you the one who would smile gently and call me Brother Jingfeng every time you saw me? And you say you're not interested in me. Now you're saying this again. Saying that I'm disgusting. You're crazy for no reason. Og, og. Mu Qingya's throat was tightly gripped by this man's strong hand. Naturally, she couldn't help but cry out and struggle to breathe. Unfortunately, Mu Qingya didn't have the strength to truss a chicken. Chapter 36-30. Even if Mu Jingfeng was seriously injured, with his cultivation, he wasn't someone a woman like her could easily break free from. Madam, madam, madam. Nanny Chiu struggled to get up, but the talisman earlier hurt her all over. She wanted to get up now, but she didn't have any strength left. Song Lu, who was at the side, had long fainted from the talisman's power. Someone come quickly. Master has gone crazy. Someone come and save Madam. Nanny Chio's shrill voice nearly broke through the roof. Mu Jingfeng's eyes were already red, and he clutched Mu Qingya's throat tightly as though he had lost all reason. He spat, "Bitch, you bitch. What did I do wrong to you? Why are you doing this to me? Just because I don't have the position of the family head, just because I'm about to become a cripple. That's why you look down on me and even want to rebel against me. I'm telling you, Mu Qingya. Don't even think about leaving me in this lifetime. You were my, Mu Jingfeng's, when you were alive, and when you die, you'll also become my, Mu Jingfeng's, ghost." As he spoke, his eyes reddened, and he exerted more strength in his hands, as though he wanted to strangle Mu Qingya to death. Mu Qingya's face contorted as she glared at the man in front of her. Her eyes were fixated on him, and her expression was filled with hatred. The Crown Princess has arrived. At this moment, an announcement was suddenly heard, and it sounded like the sound of nature. In the room, Nanny Chio's spirits were lifted, and she struggled to crawl toward the door with tears streaming down her face. As she crawled, she shouted loudly, Crown Princess, save me, Crown Princess." The little Crown Princess stepped through the door and immediately saw Mu Jingfeng, who was tightly pressed against Mu Qingya and had his hands tightly wrapped around her neck. This man was desperately clutching Mu Qingya's neck like a madman, as though he wanted to strangle her to death. Arbor's gaze changed slightly, and he coldly said, "Why aren't you going to pull them away?" "Yes." Tong nodded slightly and immediately stepped forward. He forcefully pulled away Mu Jingfeng, who was not letting go of Mu Qingya's neck. Cough, 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 cough. Mu Qingya heaved a sigh of relief. Her chest heaved up and down. She covered her throat and coughed violently as if she was going to cough her lungs out. Song Lu and the other maidservants were also woken up by Kai Xiu, Kai Chi, and the others by pinching their philtrum. "Madam, madam." Song Lu and the others hurriedly crawled forward while sobbing. They all appeared to be in a very sorry state. There were still traces of blood on the corners of their lips. Perhaps they had suffered some internal injuries. "I am fine. I'm fine." Mu Qingya forced a smile at them and coughed hoarsely. Arbor looked at them coldly. He glanced around and his gaze fell on the broken porcelain on the ground. There was a complicated look in her eyes as she looked at Mu Qingya, who was sitting on the ground. There were still 10 distinct marks left on Mu Qingya's neck. It could be seen that Mu Jingfeng had put in a lot of effort back then and was bent on killing her. Arbor glanced at Mu Jingfeng, who was on the other side. At this moment, he was thrown to the side by Tong like trash. He was panting heavily, and his face and neck were red. Crown Princess, please save me." Nanny Chio lifted the corner of her skirt and crawled forward on her knees. She crawled to Arbor and kowtowed twice. Chapter 36-31. Crown Prince Consort, Lord suddenly went crazy and actually did such a vicious thing to Madam. Is there something wrong with his mind? When Mu Jingfeng noticed the young Crown Prince Consort's icy gaze on him, he couldn't help but shrink back. His entire body trembled, and he immediately shouted sternly, "You old hag, watch your words. Who are you saying has a mental problem? Who are you talking about? Hold him down." The little Crown Princess coldly ordered. Immediately, 2 youths rushed forward and firmly grabbed Mu Jingfeng's shoulders, pressing him to the ground. "Search the front and rear courtyards. Don't miss a single inch of this place," Arbor coldly ordered. "You unfilial daughter, unfilial daughter. What are you doing? What are you doing? Mu Jingfeng shrieked and pounded the ground with all his might. He angrily roared, "You dare to treat your own biological father like this, aren't you afraid of suffering divine retribution? Divine retribution. Let it come. See if it comes or not." Arbor coldly interrupted Mu Jingfeng's words and said impatiently, "Shut up. The crown princess told you to shut up. Shut up." Tong abruptly grabbed Mu Jingfeng's neck, instantly silencing him. Mu Jingfeng did not expect that a few minutes ago, he was still holding Mu Qingya's neck to flaunt his authority, but now, it was his turn. His eyes were full of resentment as he stared fixedly at Arbor, as though he could dismember him into 1,000 pieces just by staring at him like this. "Invite a physician over to take a look at family head Mu and send him to his room. Don't let him come out to scare people if there's nothing important," Arbor indifferently ordered. "Arbor, you unfilial daughter, you will suffer divine retribution. You dare to imprison your own father. Arbor. You unfilial daughter, you are." Mu Jingfeng was in a state of madness as he was shoved into the inner room with disheveled hair. The wooden door slammed shut, causing Mu Qingya and the rest in the outer room to be endlessly alarmed. Everyone raised their heads in fear and looked carefully at the expressionless crown princess. She was so resolute and decisive, as though she did not have the slightest bit of affection for Mu Jingfeng. At this moment, Arbor's eyes were fixed on Mu Qingya's face. She looked at her as if she wanted her gaze to bore a hole in her face, or even a hole in her heart, so that she could see clearly what this woman was thinking. Although she did not see what had happened in the room just now, when she entered the gilded garden, the quarrel between the two of them had reached its climax. Even if he hadn't seen it with his own eyes, he had heard it with his own ears. With her intelligence, she could naturally guess why Mu Qingya had a falling out with Mu Jingfeng. Mu Qingya actually hated this man ever since the day she was forcefully taken by Mu Jingfeng. She had hidden it so well all these years, but she had always suppressed this hatred in the deepest part of her heart. This woman was really puzzling. Arbor stared at her. The little crown princess's gaze made Mu Qingya's heart palpitate uneasily. She coughed hard a few times and raised her head to look at Arbor. "Crown princess, thank you for saving my life. Why do you hate Mu Jingfeng so much?" Arbor felt that instead of suppressing some doubts in her heart, it was better to ask her personally. Mu Qingya's expression instantly changed. I don't hate family head." Chapter 36-32. Arbor shook his head. "I heard everything. You said that you've always been disgusted by him." Mu Qingya's expression instantly turned even uglier, and it even became slightly distorted and unnatural. She was, after all, Qiao Mu's stepmother in name. It was truly a bit difficult for her to talk about these romantic affairs of the past in front of a child. Why? Arbor didn't want to let her off just like that. He continued to question her coldly, but his gaze lingered on her face, not letting go of even the slightest change in her expression. Mu Qingya bit her lip hard. I naturally hate him. He already has Sister Chu Yun. Yet, he still pesters me endlessly. I'm already far enough away from him. Back then, I went out to train and do missions all day long just to be able to stay away from him. Who knew that this deranged man would actually use alcohol to vent his anger after that incident? Sister Chu Yun's heart must have felt terrible. She's such a strong-willed person. She'll only suppress her grievances in the bottom of her heart and won't say anything. Mu Qingya coldly said, Mu Jingfeng is truly an extremely disgusting person. If he hadn't shrunk his hands and become as timid as a mouse, how could sister have left the Mu family and gone to save her own relatives alone? After that, how could we possibly have lost contact with sister? It's all this man's fault. It's him. It's him who harmed sister. It's him. He doesn't deserve to be a husband at all. He doesn't deserve to be the head of the Mu family. Today, the patriarch stripped him of his position as the head of the family, struck by lightning as punishment, and half of his meridians were destroyed. It's all his own fault. If sister's spirit is in heaven, she should feel gratified. Arbor kept staring at her, She realized that when Mu Qingya mentioned Mu Jingfeng, her eyes seemed to be able to quench out a poisonous glint, but when she mentioned her mother, Long Chu-yun, the radiance and gentleness in her eyes couldn't be concealed at all. It really didn't seem like an act. If a person could put on an act to this extent, it could really be said to be flawless. In terms of controlling one's emotions, they were basically invincible in the world. Xiao Mu shook her head. She instinctively felt that she might have really wronged Mu Qingya. The tenderness in Mu Qingya's eyes towards her mother didn't seem to be fake. And this trace of gentleness made Arbor feel that something was wrong. This gentleness seemed a little perverted. Could it be that she was hallucinating? She took a closer look at Mu Qingya, and when she saw that Mu Qingya's expression had changed, she turned her head and smiled lovingly at her. Qiao, try to trust me, okay? I won't hurt you. I will definitely protect you on behalf of your mother. Arbor's expression was extremely complicated. He looked at her for a long time before he said through gritted teeth, "Don't you hate me? Because of my return, your biological daughter went mad with jealousy. In the end, the Mu family crippled her cultivation, broke her arms, and chased her out of the main family. Her life was ruined because of me." Arbor looked at her coldly, carefully observing the strength of every muscle on her face. "Although I don't think I've harmed her, she only has herself to blame for everything that happened because of her paranoia." Arbor said coldly, "But no matter what, your cold-blooded husband did harm Mu Rochuan because he wanted to please me." Chapter 36-33. Don't you hate me? Arbor asked. Mu Qingya shook her head and said calmly, "Jojo, the paths we take in life may seem different, but they all lead to the same destination. Humans, if they walk the wrong path, they will walk the wrong path. They must pay for their mistakes and pay the price they deserve." Rochuan was jealous and couldn't control herself. In the end, she hurt herself. How can she blame you? She can't blame anyone. Mu Qingya raised her head and looked at Arbor seriously. "Jojo, how can I hate you? The love I have for you is unadulterated. You'll understand in the future." Arbor stared at Mu Qingya intently, not missing a single inch of her expression. At this time, the team captain, who had led numerous purple forest guards to search the inside and outside of the estate, arrived in front of Xiao Mu and shook his head at her in defeat. Nothing. Arbor looked down and closed his eyes. Crown Princess. A young man in black rushed in and whispered to Arbor. "Let's go." Arbor looked at Mu Qingya deeply and led the purple forest guards out of the gilded garden without saying anything. "Madam." Song Lu held Mu Qingya's arm in fright. On the other hand, Mu Qingya was indifferent as she lightly patted her twice. Her eyes warmly gazed at Xiao Mu's departing figure for a long time. The red and green finger marks on his neck were especially glaring under the setting sun. After leaving the garden, Arbor ordered, "Let's go to Chasing Wind Garden." Everyone went to Chasing Wind Garden. As soon as they entered, they saw Elder Qing tied up and thrown to the ground. Xiao Mu's pitch-black eyes narrowed slightly as she gazed at this person with a cold glint. "I didn't expect you to be one of Tianyin's pawns in the Mu family. How is it? Do you have anything to say to me?" A purple forest guard hurried forward and whispered, "Crown Princess, this subordinate used a dictum talisman on this person," but Arbor looked at Elder Qing carefully and saw the old man tilting his head and smiling foolishly. Arbor took a few steps forward and grabbed Elder Qing's head. He probed it with his divine sense and then pushed the old man's head away with a frosty expression. "Idiot! After being hit by the dictum talisman, not only did Elder Qing not speak a single word, but he also became an idiot. What did this mean? This meant that the old man's body had been cursed for a long time. This talisman was normally perfectly fine, but once Elder Qing's consciousness was invaded by an external force, it would backfire and turn Elder Qing into an idiot. Even a soul search wouldn't yield any useful information. Be careful. A roar suddenly came from behind. When Xiao Mu turned her head to look, she saw Elder Qing's body swelling before exploding abruptly. Two of the Violet Forest guards rushed forward to protect her, but they were both sent flying by the shockwave. Xiao Mu quickly strode forward and poked the two people several times, her eyes abruptly turning chilly. Tianyun was indeed interesting. Xiao Mu had to admit that she had been utterly defeated in this exchange. Crown Princess, Crown Princess. Aunt Jing, who had hurried over, was startled when she saw Arbor. She quickly bowed. Crown Princess, His Majesty urgently summons you to the palace. Chapter 36-34. Xiao Mu sat inside the carriage that was heading towards Changle Boulevard with an indifferent expression. Cai Xiu poured her a cup of tea and called out cautiously, "Crown Princess." Arbor took the teacup subconsciously. Her fingers gently stroked the patterns on the rim of the cup as she looked coldly at the passers-by outside the window. She lost. Actually, she had already lured the snake out of its hole from the moment she ordered Ao Yi to look for the so-called evidence in Shi Huixin's courtyard. She had deliberately led everyone to think that the jade talisman she gave them only recorded half of the conversation. Stay up late, and Mu Xingqian reacted quickly. The two of them immediately followed her words and led everyone to think that Shi Huixin had left evidence behind. After that, she deliberately ordered Ao Yi to search Shi Huixin's courtyard and found the so-called letter. This evidence was naturally prepared by Ao Yi himself. Therefore, as long as the person hiding in the dark had any suspicions, they would definitely come to check the evidence pointing to Chasing Wind Garden. The person Arbor wanted to lure out was first Madame Mu Qingya. She didn't believe this woman from the beginning. Arbor left people to go to Chasing Wind Garden to catch the person who dared to come to the courtyard to snoop. On the other hand, she directly brought people to First Madame's Gilded Garden and ordered them to search the entire place. What did she want to find? Naturally, she wanted to find out if there was a hidden talisman array in Mu Qingya's courtyard that could spy on the Mu family. As soon as Arbor stepped into the Mu family, she felt as if she was being watched and felt uncomfortable all over. In the end, her people didn't find any array in Gilded Garden. She even inadvertently saved Mu Qingya's life. Elder Qing, who was caught on the other side, was useless and even self-destructed to injure her people. It could be said that this confrontation with the All-Seer Alliance ended with Sir Jojo's defeat. Not only was Shi Huixin's lead broken, but they might have also alerted the enemy. Once Elder Qing of the All-Seer Alliance self-destructed, this matter would be over. Arbor raised his hand and pressed his aching forehead. He muttered to himself, could it be that the direction was completely wrong from the beginning? Crown Princess. Cai Xiu softly called her. Arbor nodded and got down from the carriage. He raised his head and looked at the Extreme Time Hall's palace gate. At this moment, another carriage came over from not far away. Following the carriage was actually King Jianping and his son, whom he had not seen for a long time. Crown Princess. When the old king of Jianping saw the young lady from afar, his face involuntarily twitched. Fuck, I don't know if it's because I'm traumatized. Every time I see this little crown princess, I feel uneasy, as if something important is going to happen. Arbor glanced at him coldly, then turned and walked up the steps of Polaris Hall. A manservant dressed in green beside the carriage frowned slightly and muttered in displeasure. He actually didn't pay his respects to the Grand Tutor. This crown princess is no different from His Highness the Crown Prince. She's so arrogant and rude. Seeing this, King Giantpain's heir hurriedly whispered, "Don't say any more. Is this manservant stupid?" Now, even he hurriedly took a detour when he saw the crown princess. How would he dare to provoke this savage girl again? Dressed in a white robe, the Grand Tutor slowly walked down from the carriage with his black hair hanging loosely at his waist. A pair of eyes brimming with wisdom gazed at Xiao Mu. Chapter 36-35. Crown Princess, His Majesty invites you to the royal study. When Arbor reached the last step, a palace servant who had been waiting for her stepped forward and led her to the royal study. Arbor glanced at him expressionlessly and didn't say a word. The little eunuch glanced at her curiously. He felt that although the little crown princess was young, she was extremely calm and had an intimidating aura. In the past, those lords who came for an audience would more or less ask them a few questions. However, this crown princess didn't say a word from beginning to end. What the little eunuch didn't know was that those people who came in the past were afraid of the great emperor and felt uneasy. That was why they tried every possible means to find out from the eunuchs what the great emperor was feeling and why he summoned them. However, the little crown princess was different. From the bottom of her heart, she had never feared the great emperor. Naturally, she wouldn't consider how he was feeling or how she should curry favor with him. In her opinion, there was no such thing as the great emperor of the divine prefecture. He was Imo Lien's father. If he could talk to him, he would talk to him. If he couldn't, Sir Jojo couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him. Following the garden path, they went all the way to the west and entered a winding corridor. Soon, they arrived at the door of the royal study. The little eunuch quickly went in to report. Arbor looked back and saw the Grand Tutor, whose face was filled with gentle light, as if he was shrouded in holy light, walking over with the King of Giantpain and his son. Before he could greet them at the door, the little crown princess had turned and left. Now that they met again, the heir of the King of Giantpain, Mo Kun, hurriedly took a few steps forward and cupped his hands respectfully. "Little sister-in-law." The King of Giantpain's mouth twitched. He really wanted to slap this lackey to death. How was this guy like the old King of Giantpain's majesty? Now, he looked like a lackey. Look at how much he fawned over this little crown princess. Arbor glanced at the crown prince of Giantpain and nodded expressionlessly. "You're also here to see His Majesty." "Ah, yes, it was His Majesty who summoned us. Crown Princess, Lord State Preceptor, King Giantpain, and Crown Prince, please come in." Following the eunuch's shout, Arbor stepped into the study first. Only then did he realize that there were many people in His Majesty's imperial study. Prince Kong Mo Lufeng, Prince Xing Mo Shikong, Prince Yongan and Crown Prince Mo Su, who had just entered the capital, as well as several important ministers, were all sitting there. The King of Giantpain and his son hurriedly went forward to greet the great emperor. Everyone in the study stood up in unison to greet the imperial preceptor and the King of Giantpain. When they were all done, they turned around and saw the little crown princess standing there expressionlessly. She was like a little wooden stake, not moving at all. Everyone was at a loss for words. Right Prime Minister Gao Baran coughed lightly. His Majesty summoned everyone today to discuss His Highness the Crown Prince's disappearance in Graping Village. I believe everyone should have heard a little about what happened in Graping Village. Everyone nodded and secretly observed the little crown princess's expression. Expressionless fuck, Crown Princess, is it really alright for you to be like this? Right now, everyone is talking about your husband's life. Even if you don't cry, you should at least express a trace of concern. Imperial Father. The little crown princess suddenly interrupted everyone's discussion coldly. She took a step forward and placed a memorial on His Majesty's desk. "I want to impeach the Crown Prince of Yongan Mo Su." Chapter 36-36. The Crown Prince of Eternal Peace Mo Su almost shed tears. He didn't expect that the little Crown Princess would really accuse him in front of the Emperor. When he saw the little Crown Princess step into the Imperial study, he felt a chill run down his spine. He didn't expect that this little Crown Princess would really accuse him in front of so many adults. Whoa, he already called her sister-in-law and admitted his mistake in front of her. Why did she still want to mess with him like this? The Emperor stared blankly for a moment, then reached out to take the booklet she handed over. After looking at it carefully, he glanced at her again. Crown Princess. Mo Su was at the Mu family's mountain gate with a group of repulsive hedonistic sons, wantonly shooting the citizens of the divine continent. He should be severely punished as a warning to others. The Crown Prince of Eternal Peace hurriedly stepped forward and cupped his hands. Your Majesty. Mo Su didn't do it on purpose. At that time, he was only deceived by others and didn't join in the activity of shooting the beggars. This Crown Princess saw it with her own eyes. Could it be false? Arbor turned his head and coldly swept a glance at the Crown Prince of Eternal Peace. The Crown Prince of Eternal Peace is not strict in teaching his son. Shouldn't you be brave enough to bear this mistake and set yourself as an example? Crown Princess, don't you? If the Crown Prince was present that day, he would definitely personally whip the Crown Prince of Eternal Peace 30 times. He would help the Crown Prince of Eternal Peace reprimand the prince. Crown Princess, if this Crown Princess had a brother like this, she would definitely teach him a lesson personally and would definitely not let others do it. There should be a limit to how mischievous you can be. You can't even guard your own bottom line as a person. You're simply unworthy of being a human. The Crown Prince of Eternal Peace's old face flushed red, stuttering out the word, you, unable to say anything else. Everyone didn't even dare to breathe loudly, each of them looking down and sighing in their hearts. Of all the people you could provoke, you had to provoke that little malefic Crown Princess. Listening to the little Crown Princess's words, it seemed that the Crown Prince of Eternal Peace was playing around with a group of hedonistic sons shooting the beggars at the Mu family's mountain gate, and they were caught by the Crown Princess. Presumably, these people wouldn't have a good ending. When the Prince of Eternal Peace saw his father's face turn red, he hurriedly knelt down and lowered his head as he cried out pitifully, Imperial Uncle, Su knows his mistake. Mo Liuxing's eyes flickered as he praised his nephew's wit in his heart. He hurriedly went with the flow and said, the Eternal Peace Duke's heir is frivolous and unrestrained, disregarding human life. Seeing that you are young and have the intention to repent, give him 15 lashes as punishment. This child was indeed quick-witted. If he stubbornly refused to admit his mistake, what awaited him would be the little Crown Princess' relentless pursuit. If he didn't admit his mistake now, he would definitely regret it later. The great emperor admitted that he hadn't spent much time with his daughter-in-law, but for some reason, he felt that he understood her temperament quite well. Most of the time, the young lady only wanted you to admit your mistake and accept punishment. Then, the matter would be over. If you stubbornly refused to admit your mistake after doing something wrong, and even tried to quibble or resist, the young lady would definitely let you know how helpless your future life would be. After Mo Su was dragged out to be whipped, the young lady indeed stopped talking. The great emperor glanced at the young lady, his expression turning serious as he said, Crown Princess, we have lost contact with the Crown Prince in Grey Plain Village. We don't know how he is doing. There are only 10 days left until your wedding day. Shouldn't this wedding be postponed for a few days? Among the ministers present, some nodded, some remained silent. State Preceptor, what do you think? Chapter 36-37. Delaying the wedding date is indeed the safest way. The State Preceptor nodded calmly. Seeing Arbor suddenly turn to glare at him, the State Preceptor even smiled at Arbor in a very good-natured manner. Xiao Mu couldn't help but have a strange feeling resurface in her heart when she saw that gentle expert's appearance. From the time they met until now, she had only met this state preceptor a few times. But every time they met, this state preceptor seemed to be speaking in a very gentle tone about Sir Jojo, but every time, he would push things in a bad direction. For example, this time, what right did he have to delay Jojo and Lien's wedding just because he said one sentence? No. Arbor rudely interrupted the Lord's words and said coldly, "Don't postpone it." They had agreed on the 6th of June, such a good wedding date, how could they postpone it just like that? Jojo did not agree. The Emperor subconsciously twitched his mouth and glanced at his daughter-in-law, who had a serious expression on her face. Cough, Crown Princess, the people we sent to Graping Village all said that there was no news of the Crown Prince for the time being. So what? Arbor glanced at the Emperor expressionlessly. The Crown Prince will be fine, he will definitely return on time. Arbor said resolutely. The wedding date cannot be postponed, it will be held on the 6th of June as usual. The state preceptor turned to look at her and sighed. If His Highness the Crown Prince does not return on time on the 6th of June, then the wedding ceremony will be a joke. Arbor's almond eyes narrowed, a murderous glint overflowing. I already said that he will return, what nonsense are you spouting? You're so long-winded and annoying. Everyone, the Duke of Eternal Peace looked at the little Crown Princess, then glanced at the Emperor and the state preceptor's expressions. He suddenly felt much better. The little Crown Princess even dared to confront the state preceptor directly, let alone his son Mo-su. In front of the state preceptor, his son Mo-su was nothing. With this thought in mind, the indescribable emotions in his heart calmed down quite a bit. The National Master sighed. Like an elder full of holy light, he looked at his mischievous junior and said calmly, "It's not that I want to stop you two from getting married. It's just that if His Highness the Crown Prince doesn't return on the day of the wedding, this wedding will become a joke in the eyes of the people of the Divine Land. Crown Princess, the Imperial Tutor is thinking for you." Chen Chaoji smiled and couldn't help but interject. Arbor looked at him coldly. No. Change. Release. 2. Do you not understand human language? Arbor interrupted Chen Chaoji, who was about to open his mouth. Since when do you have the right to interfere in the affairs of the Crown Princess? You're too long-winded. The wedding will proceed as scheduled. Her gaze coldly swept over everyone present. Don't try to play any tricks or play any tricks. None of you can bear the consequences of disappointing Jojo's lotus. The little girl's face was red with anger. She turned around and walked out of the imperial study. She did not pay attention to anyone else. A bunch of liars. They said they were going to get married on the 6th of June, but they wanted to secretly add fuel to the fire. They wanted to mess with Sir Jojo. Go to hell. Everyone couldn't help but look at each other, then turned to look at the Emperor, who was sitting in the middle of the study. The Emperor raised a hand to massage his throbbing forehead, then said helplessly, "Since the Crown Princess doesn't think there's a problem, then let's proceed as planned." Chen Chaoji opened his mouth, then closed it angrily. Chapter 36-38. This Crown Prince consort simply didn't know what was good for her. Clearly, everyone was thinking for her. It was fine if she didn't appreciate their kindness, but she actually scolded everyone and said that they were meddlesome. How preposterous. Chen Chaoji turned to look in the direction of the Grand Tutor. The Grand Tutor still had a faint smile on his face, as if he did not care about Arbor's rude treatment just now. My Lien section break, dong dong, dong dong. After a few sounds, countless rocks rolled down from the stone wall. It was only after the nearby cave stopped shaking that Mo Lien came out from behind Golem 2 and Golem 3. He carefully examined this cave wall that had been buried by shattered rocks. After days of investigation, he narrowed down the distance and range inch by inch and finally determined that this was the location of the formation board. However, after the mechanical puppets dug many times, the nearby mountain walls were unstable and would collapse from time to time. Mo Lien was used to it. Along the way, he only let little Seven out occasionally to chat with him. The rest of the time, he was studying how to destroy the formation board. It was quite strange. This Earth Spirit formation could be said to have been set up with great effort. Without a heaven-level talisman master, it was impossible to set up such a large formation. However, when he fought with the gray figure in the formation board from a distance, he could feel that this person was definitely not a heaven-level talisman master. Since he could kill that person's physical body with just a streak of sword intent, it was obvious that he was not very powerful. Therefore, this disc array really gave people a strange feeling. Little Seven. Seventh Yan's figure appeared next to Mo Lien, and he turned to give him an inquiring look. Mo Lien nodded slightly at him. Yen Qi immediately understood. His outstretched fist instantly turned into a dragon claw and clawed at the ground. After a Qi sound, the extremely sharp claw cut a crack in the ground. Looking into the crack, the two of them faintly saw a circle of white jade talismans that shone faintly. Yen Qi tore the crack wider with his claws. The two of them looked down and saw dozens of jade talismans floating in a circle. Yen Qi removed some of the gravel from the side of the crack and pointed downwards. Master, shall I go down and take a look? Mo Lien shook her head. I'll go. Without waiting for Yen Qi's protest, he leaped into the crack in the ground in a flash. But before he could get close to the jade glyph array, the glyph array suddenly burst out with a strong light, rushing straight at his face. Mo Lien was already prepared, and at this time, she also set up a defensive barrier on her body. Naturally, this strong light was isolated by him. The black moon sword in his hand shook slightly, and in the next moment, it struck the periphery of the jade charm array, scraping off clusters of white fragments. There was a powerful defensive array glyphs on the disc array, which was why Mo Lien was unable to break it open. Her wrist was even hit by a rebounding force. His eyes narrowed slightly. Just as he was about to continue, a green vine suddenly drilled out of his sleeve and excitedly drilled into the array glyphs on the ground. However, the array glyphs would attack all intruders indiscriminately. It directly created a barrier, and with a bang, the green vine was repelled. A section of the green vine twisted and drilled into the ground again. The other half of the vine curled up and threw out a shiny stone with a whoosh. Mo Lien reached out to catch it. After taking a closer look, her slender eyebrows raised slightly. A holy stone. There was a holy meridian under the array glyphs. Chapter 36-39. Mo Lien's heart skipped a beat, and she jumped into the crack. The raven moon sword in her hand slashed at the defensive wall a few times, but it did not budge at all. What a strong defensive wall, Mo Lien thought. There were not many defensive walls in this world that could withstand her full-force attack. One person, one dragon, and one green vine struggled in the pit for a long time. The sky was about to brighten, but the array formation did not budge at all. The three of them could not help but feel a little discouraged, especially that half of the little tree's vine. It drooped listlessly and hung on Mo Lien's arm, pretending to be dead. Mo Lien could not help but find it funny. This thing was just a branch of the little tree, Cho-Cho. It was too intelligent. Master, the person who set up this array formation is very powerful. Seventh Yen blinked and could not help but say, when I saw that fellow's body was destroyed by Master's sword, I thought he was not that powerful. I did not expect that person's cultivation level to be so weak, but his array formation is so powerful. You think this is that fellow's array formation? Mo Lien curled her lips and glanced at Seventh Yen. Seventh Yen was stunned and immediately shouted, "Isn't it?" "It isn't." Mo Lien shook her head and pointed at the dozens of jade talismans below. Looking at the quality of these jade talismans, they must have been buried here for at least 20 to 30 years. This array formation was left behind by a heaven-level great talisman master, Mo Lien said calmly. That fellow, All-Seer, just got lucky and accidentally saw this array formation. He made some slight changes to the original array formation and formed an Earth Spirit array on the outer layer and a very strong defensive array formation on the inner layer. So this array formation was not set up by that fellow, All-Seer? Seventh Yen asked in surprise. Mo Lien nodded with certainty. If he had this kind of array formation skills, he would not have been killed by me so easily from the start. Then who left this array formation? This array must be used to protect the sacred bloodline underneath, Mo Lien sighed. If Jojo were here, he would be able to break it. It wasn't that brute force was impossible, but it would take too much time and effort. He had to get out as soon as possible. As for these worldly possessions, I'll send someone to try again later. After making up her mind, Mo Lien didn't waste any more time. She immediately asked Little Seven to destroy the outer layer of the formation. This array disc was suspended above the dozens of jade talismans, and it had already been slightly shattered. Little Seven threw a punch over and it didn't take much effort to break the disc array apart. Subsequently, Mo Lien hugged the green vine and leaped onto the crevice with Little Seven. His feet suddenly trembled, and the rocks on the mountain wall seemed to be summoned by something, rolling down one by one. Very quickly, the crack created by Little Seven's claw was completely blocked. After the Earth's spiritual array was completely destroyed, the suction force of the array disk naturally ceased to exist. Little Seven transformed into a dragon and soared into the sky, rushing out of the deep valley with Mo Lien on his back. Prince Mo stood on the dragon's back and gazed into the distance in the direction of the deep valley. His gaze was fixated on the sacred bloodline buried under countless huge rocks, and he pursed his lips without speaking for a long time. At the same time, inside Sangzhou's Taiji Palace, the sound of hurried footsteps caused Duanyu, who was meditating and cultivating, to crease his brows and slowly open his eyes. He saw a junior eunuch jogging in hurriedly and repeatedly shouting, "Your Highness, Her Highness the noble consort has returned. Her Highness the noble consort is injured." Chapter 3640. Duan Xiaoxi jumped up from the couch and questioned coldly with a sullen expression, "What happened?" The accompanying eunuch, Xiao Kuzi, followed behind the fourth prince, who was taking large strides. Along the way, Xiao Kuzi hurriedly said, "This servant only heard that when they were hunting, a white bear suddenly broke into the camp and startled many of the imperial concubines. Her Highness the noble consort was slapped by the white bear, and I think she vomited blood at that time. The hunting grounds environment was vile, so the accompanying physician said that it would be better to return to the capital for treatment. We were delayed for several days on the road. Fortunately, Her Highness is blessed by the heavens, so she's fine now." Duan Yu's eyes instantly emitted a faint purple light, and the fury in his eyes almost flowed out uncontrollably. A white bear suddenly barged into such a large camp and even directly barged into the noble consort's tent to heavily injure her. Was there nothing fishy about this matter? Her Highness the noble consort's life shouldn't be in any danger, right? Xiao Kezi's words came to an abrupt halt when he saw His Highness the fourth prince's severe gaze. Duan Yu was very fast and instantly arrived at the entrance of his mother's morning glory palace. Without any notice, Duan Yu had already entered his mother's bedchamber with large strides. As soon as he entered, he saw many royal concubines standing outside the muslin canopy. It looked like they specially came to visit his mother. Duan Yu unconsciously creased his brows and directly lifted the muslin canopy to quickly walk to the bed. Mother. Ali, noble consort Duan's voice was weak and hoarse, but it could be heard that she was still awake. Duan Xiaoxi hastily ran over and grasped his mother's hand that was peeking out from behind the bed curtain. Mother, what happened? It's fine, child. Don't worry. Noble consort Duan raised her hand and stroked her son's head comfortingly. She was only frightened by that white bear. She's fine now. Mother. Duan Yu looked at his mother's deathly pale face in displeasure and disapproved. You're still trying to hide it from me at a time like this. Noble consort Duan was helpless and stroked the back of her son's hand. Son, don't worry. Mother will definitely be fine. Duan Yu's handsome face darkened as he took out a medicine bottle from his inner world. He poured out a pill and handed it to his mother. Mother, swallow this first. What medicine is this? This is 100 treasures Dan for qi cultivation. His mother was an ordinary person, so this 100 treasures Dan was the most suitable for her. Not only could it subtly improve one's body, it could also help to nourish one's qi, refresh one's spirit, and prolong one's life. Of course, this was given by Jojo. Every time Jojo threw a pill to him, he acted like a tycoon. Other people would only give out 1 or 2 pills, but this little guy gave out 8 or 10 bottles. She said that this 100 treasures pill was refined by her mother. When she gave it to him, she shook her head at him and said with disdain, "It's not as good as the one I refined." Chio didn't really like them. Ha, mother is fine. Noble consort Duan rolled her eyes at her son. What a waste of medicinal pills. Take one every day. Duan Yu couldn't be bothered to waste words with his mother and directly turned to hand the medicine bottle to Nanny Lu, who was standing at the side. Nanny, give this to mother every day. Yes, Your Highness. Nanny Lu had always obeyed His Highness the Fourth Prince's words. Knowing that this pill was beneficial to Her Highness, she naturally carefully put it away and committed it to memory. Noble consort Duan couldn't resist rolling her eyes at her son again. What's the point of being so wasteful? Mother will be fine after taking care of it for a while. Chapter 3641. Mom, I still have a lot of these pills. Just eat as much as you want. Duan Yu earnestly looked at his mother and repeatedly exhorted, now that your vitality has been greatly damaged, you must properly recuperate. Otherwise, who knows, you might look 10 years older than before. What? When noble consort Duan heard her son say that she might age after damaging her vitality this time, she immediately straightened up and pulled her son's hand. Son, Mom really has aged a lot. She reached out to touch her pale cheeks and hurriedly asked. Duan Yu nodded in all seriousness and then said, Mom, don't panic. I know a pill refiner friend who has a large amount of longevity pills and beautifying pills. Beautifying pills. Noble consort Duan quickly touched her face again. Are the beautifying effects very good? Yes, of course they are good. Duan Yu nodded. When we return to the academy, I'll ask for one for you. Noble consort Duan nodded repeatedly. Okay. No matter how old a woman was, the pursuit of beautifying pills was instinctive. Son, is the pill refiner you mentioned the one you mentioned to Mom last time, pill refiner Bearded's friend? Duan Yu's hand that was about to take the bowl of soup froze abruptly, and his fingers paused. After seeing Mother Lin's inquiring gaze, Fourth Duan calmly continued to carry the bowl of medicine over. He coughed lightly and nodded. Emsham. Mom, you must take good care of your body. You still have a long road ahead of you. You promised your son that you would make soup for your son until he was 100 years old. Noble consort Duan was amused and nodded as she poked Duan Yu's forehead. Okay. Mom will definitely make soup for my son until he's 100 years old. Duan Yu handed the bowl of medicine to his mother and let her drink all the medicine inside. The Crown Prince is leaving for the Divine Province tomorrow. Son, when do you plan to go? There are only a few days left until the Crown Prince of the Divine Province's wedding. Didn't your father say last time that you should accompany Rongli? Duan Yu looked up at his mother and nodded with a faint smile. No hurry, Mom. Did you forget that Chestnut's feet are very fast? It won't take more than a few days. All right, Mother, don't think too much. Quickly lie down and have a good rest. As for the rest, leave it to your son to handle. After exchanging a few more pleasantries with his mother, Duan Yu withdrew from the muslin canopy. He swept a glance at the royal concubines who had yet to leave and said faintly, Mother is unwell, so don't disturb her today. Men, send the imperial concubines back to the palace. It was only after Duan Yu stepped out of Chaohua Palace that his expression abruptly chilled. Rongli is leaving tomorrow. Yes, Your Highness. A dark figure silently appeared behind him. Cripple one of his hands. A purple light flashed through Duan Yu's eyes. His pair of cold peach blossom eyes were filled with frost. Since Empress Lute dared to attack his mother again, he would make this woman's precious son lose a hand. He wanted to see how the Crown Prince would deal with himself without a hand. A savage glint appeared in Duan Yu's eyes. A hoarse laugh came from the depths of his consciousness. Kid, do you want this old man to help you? As long as this old man makes a move, it won't take any effort at all. Duan Yu grasped his left arm and felt his blood vessels throbbing violently. Chapter 36-42. Here it came again. This old ghost wanted to use power to tempt him again. Unfortunately, he could easily resolve this kind of trivial matter by himself and didn't need his so-called help at all. Duan Yu's eyes were incomparably cold as he directly spat out a word at that old man, Scram. The aged voice instantly vanished from his mind. Duan Yu frowned as he quickly left noble consort Duan's bedchamber and headed for Taiji Palace. It's time to promote noble consort Qing's position. Duan Yu's aloof voice wandered through the silent air. As if he was talking to himself, several shadows swiftly left in the distance. Duan Yu strolled back to Taiji Palace's entrance by himself. His eyes abruptly chilled as he glanced behind him. A figure wearing a floral dress rushed out from the side and abruptly threw herself into Duan Yu's arms. Duan Yu's eyes were sharp and his legs were fast. He directly kicked this suicidal woman away. He was already in a bad mood, and now that this happened, his handsome face completely darkened, and his eyes flickered with a cold glint. Still not dragging her away. Just as his chilly voice rang out, two shadows appeared behind him. Without another word, they grabbed that woman's arms and dragged her out of the flower path. That woman was originally in so much pain that she could barely speak after being kicked. Now that she saw the two hidden guards dragging her away without any explanation, she instantly became even more anxious. Her small face was ghastly pale as she frantically struggled and screamed, "Your Highness the Fourth Prince, Your Highness the Fourth Prince. I am Chen Baojia, Let go, don't grab me. Your Highness, I am the daughter of the Lord Left Minister of the Divine Province, Chen Baojia. We know each other, we're from the Academy. We've met before. We're heading to the Sun-Moon Mystic Realm together, Your Highness the Fourth Prince." Duan Yu coldly looked at this extremely disheveled woman in front of him. There was a very red handprint on the left side of her face, and there were wounds on her neck and arms, as if she had been whipped. He sneered as his gaze swept over her body. "Why are you here?" A secret guard stepped forward and whispered a few reports into his ear. Duan Yu's stern eyes swept over Chen Baojia's tear-stained face as he coldly stated, "Since you're already the crown prince's concubine, then you belong to the crown prince. Why did you come all the way from the Eastern Palace to my Taiji Palace? This Miss Chen is really funny. Instead of being the second miss of the left prime minister's family, why did she come to Zhangzhou and follow Crown Prince Rongli without any status? She was given the title of Lady Jia, which was neither fish nor fowl. In fact, she had no status at all. She was even worse than the lowest-ranked concubine of the Crown Prince. This Lady Jia was not even on the roster of the Crown Prince's harem. Your Highness, I have a favor to ask of you." Chen Baojia screamed, I just want to go back to the divine land with you. He's there. Suddenly, a few uneven roars interrupted Chen Baojia's words. Duan Yu looked over and saw several Eastern Palace guards viciously dashing toward them. Chen Baojia's expression immediately changed, and she struggled to break free from the secret guard's grasp. She screamed, Your Highness, save me, please save me. Take me back to the divine land, I beg of you. Take me back to. Several Eastern Palace guards had already pounced over in a fury and twisted Chen Baojia's arms. Go! Chapter 36-43. Your Highness the Fourth Prince, apologies for the disturbance. This woman is wanted by our Hong Liangdi. She must be brought back to the Eastern Palace right now. Please release her, Your Highness the Fourth Prince. The guard leader cupped his hands respectfully at Duan Yu. Duan Yu naturally didn't need to quarrel with the Eastern Palace guards. Moreover, he didn't plan on meddling in Chen Baojia's business, so he nodded and raised his hand. The two hidden guards released their grip and pushed Chen Baojia towards the Eastern Palace guards. Chen Baojia instantly shrieked in panic, No, you can't. Your Highness the Fourth Prince, you can't hand me over to them. Bring me back to the divine province. My father will definitely reward you handsomely. Your Highness the Fourth Prince, Your Highness the Fourth Prince. Duan Yu couldn't help but find this woman a bit funny. With his status, would he care about Father Chen's small reward? Seeing the Eastern Palace guards about to escort her out of Taiji Palace, Chen Baojia couldn't resist blurting out, Your Highness, I can tell you a secret. It's a secret about Arbor. She regretted it as soon as she said it. On the way to the Sun-Moon mystic realm, she could naturally discern the relationship between Duan Yu and Arbor. Now that she blurted it out without thinking, she wondered if it would backfire on her. With this thought, Chen Baojia's complexion became increasingly flustered and pale, and she felt like she was about to collapse. But the words had already left her mouth. When she felt Duan Yu's sharp gaze land on her, Chen Baojia could only force herself to keep a straight face and pretend to be very calm. Wait, Duan Yu shouted coldly. The two hidden guards drew their swords at the same time and blocked the path of the Eastern Palace guards. The guard leader's expression shifted, and he quickly turned to Duan Yu and said, Your Highness Prince Chen. This isn't good. This is our Eastern Palace's Madame Jia. If you insist on keeping her, His Highness the Crown Prince won't be able to justify it. This subordinate is here. Teach them how to conduct themselves. Duan Yu raised his brows as he ordered dryly. Yes. The shadow guard called Ing took a few steps forward and punched the shoulder of the guard leader without saying a word. When the guard leader retreated in pain, Ing kicked him in the stomach and sent him flying a few steps before falling heavily on the ground. That junior guard commander couldn't crawl up for a long time, but he didn't dare to speak as he raised his head to look at Duan Yu and the others. Come over and tell me. If this prince is interested, perhaps this prince can really save you. Duan Yu suddenly smiled at Chen Baojia and beckoned her over. Although the man in front of her was smiling and looked very handsome, Chen Baojia somehow felt an inexplicable sense of danger. She took a step back with a strong desire to survive, and then she tried to steady her voice and said, I know that the Crown Prince's trip to Shenzhou is not only to congratulate the Crown Prince of Shenzhou on his wedding, but also secretly, Lady Jia. The Eastern Palace guard shouted angrily. You've only offended Hongliangdi. If you also offend His Highness the Crown Prince, your life in the future, heh. The guard leader's voice was very cold, and Chen Baojia's mind finally cleared up a bit. Indeed, if she offended Crown Prince wrongly, she really wouldn't be able to survive in the future. Duan Yu's gaze instantly turned icy. Ing nodded in understanding. Chapter 36-44. At the same time that a long sword left its scabbard, Shadow nimbly flew towards the guard leader. Before the guard could react, the blade of the sword had already struck his head. The guard leader cried out in alarm and activated his defensive spirit weapon to block at the critical moment. Unfortunately, Shadow's sword was astonishingly fast. As the sword descended, a vigorous sword intent directly split open the defensive barrier and cleaved the guard leader into two from the top down the middle. Blood splashed onto the ground. The other guards were all stunned by this scene. They dropped Chen Baojia in fright and retreated several steps. Chen Baojia was also so frightened that her entire body trembled like a sieve. After stuttering for a long time, she finally screamed, "Ah!" Without another word, Ing reached out and pulled her up. He lifted her up like a little chick to Duan Yu and flung her heavily. Chen Baojia fell to the ground with a face full of dirt and grime. She looked at the grinning Duan Yu in horror. He even dared to kill the Crown Prince's personal guard, so what else didn't he dare to do? Continue. The Crown Prince, he learned that Arbor has a portable spirit domain, Chen Baojia said with a shudder, so, he planned to secretly cast a spell to capture Arbor. Him. Duan Yu almost laughed out loud. That idiot wanted to capture the Crown Princess of the Divine Province from the imperial capital of the Divine Province, Longyan City, and run all the way back to Zhangzhou? Did he really think that the million-strong army of the Divine Province was just for show? As for this Chen Baojia, she was also quite a laughable person. When the Sun Moon Temple was destroyed, everyone speculated that Chen Baojia already knew that Jojo had a spirit domain. Mo Lien, that fool, even specially sent people to search for this Miss Qin and kill her to silence her. In the end, they couldn't find her after searching everywhere. Since she already ran away, couldn't she learn to be smart? She just had to walk right into a trap. This was truly an unintentional harvest. Duan Yu narrowed his eyes. He looked at Chen Baojia and asked gently, Miss Qin, other than Rongli and these people, who else have you told about the portable domain? Chen Baojia inexplicably felt the terrible danger under this gentleness and subconsciously shook her head. I didn't say anything. Oh, then how did Rongli know? Duan Yu sneered. Chen Baojia's face reddened. Ba Shu only knows about the Crown Prince. As for the others, I didn't tell a single one. Duan Yu nodded pensively before replying with a grin, excellent. There was indeed a smile on his face, but the cold smile did not reach his eyes. When he looked at Chen Baojia, he seemed very harmless, but it made Miss Qin feel fear from the bottom of her heart. Your Highness, this is a female slave of the East Palace. She didn't know the rules and came here to offend your Highness. He wondered if he could return it to the Eastern Palace. I will bring him back and teach him a lesson. Thank you, Your Highness. The woman leading 6 to 7 maidservants strode over. She was dressed luxuriously in a pink robe. She was one of the 2 favored concubines in Rong Li's palace, Hongliangdi. Duan Yu shook his head. You can't return her. Take them all away. At the same time, several more hidden guards rushed out from behind Duan Yu. Without another word, they used their swords and sabers to block the Eastern Palace guards, forcing them to walk towards the Taiji Palace. Hong Liangdi's face changed and so did the look in her eyes. Her sharp eyes seemed to turn into a sword. Your Highness. Chapter 36-45. Duan Yu's expression remained unchanged as he chuckled nonchalantly. Could it be that Hong Liangdi wants to end up like him? He glanced to the side. But how would Hong Liangdi dare to look? She wasn't blind. When she rushed over with her men earlier, she already saw the Eastern Palace guard captain who had died a gruesome death at the entrance of Taiji Palace. This corpse was truly disgusting. Prince Chen actually dared to openly threaten the Eastern Palace's Liangdi. Hong Liangdi's expression shifted unpredictably. At that moment, her eyes contained a cold glint as she faintly looked at Duan Yu and said, Your Highness Prince Chen really knows how to joke. You, Prince Chen, were already extremely arrogant and rude when you ordered the execution of the Eastern Palace guards. Now, you actually want to attack the Liangdi. Hong Liangdi reckoned that this Prince Chen was merely scaring her. He might not really dare to attack her. Hence, with a cold expression, she angrily said, What are you all waiting for? Bring Madame Jia back. She wasn't done teaching this bitch Chen Baojia a lesson yet. Moreover, this was the Eastern Palace's woman, so it wasn't Prince Chen's turn to teach her a lesson. She actually dared to escape on her own after locking her in the woodshed. She was truly gutsy. She was in Sangzhou, yet she kept putting on airs as the daughter of the left prime minister. It was simply laughable. Duan Yu sneered as he glanced indifferently at the group of hidden guards in black. Those guards instantly attacked at the same time and knocked down the maidservants and nannies who had run up to arrest her. Instantly, wails and screams were heard. Hong Liangdi's face turned livid when she saw that Duan Yu didn't give her any face and attacked her as soon as he said so. Prince Chen, don't go too far. How was he going too far? Duan Yu calmly glanced at her. That expression was enough to show that he looked down on Hong Liangdi very much. A mere crown Princess Liangdi also dared to chirp in front of him. How amusing. Damn bitch, when I return to the Divine Province, I'll definitely have my father settle accounts with you. Chen Baojia scrambled to hide behind Duan Yu and the others. Seeing that she was safe, she hid behind Duan Yu and incessantly hooted at Hong Liangdi on that side. Duan Yu turned to glance at her, thinking that this woman was also extremely hilarious. This Chen Baojia should be a retard. Duan Yu thought. Otherwise, why would she mistakenly think that he was helping her to escape from Hong Liangdi's coercion? TSK, TSK. Duan Yu shook his head and looked up in Hong Liangdi's direction. He stated aloofly, This prince will give you half a minute to scram. Otherwise, don't think of leaving. Stay here with them. Hong Liangdi's expression changed drastically, and she involuntarily took 2 steps back. She looked at Duan Yu with an uncertain expression for a long time before she abruptly turned around and shouted, Let's go. Hong Liangdi did not dare to stay any longer and hurriedly left with a group of young and old maidservants. Hong Liangdi's face was full of anger. She hurried back to the palace to complain to Empress Lu. Meanwhile, Duan Yu turned to glance at Chen Baojia. That woman originally had a smug expression when she saw Hong Liangdi retreat in defeat, but when she saw Duan Yu looking at her, her heart involuntarily tightened. She rolled her eyes and hastily said, Your Highness, on account of our friendship as classmates, you have to bring me back to the Divine Province no matter what, right? Duan Yu actually smiled at her. Those peach blossom eyes that seemed to sparkle with starlight actually looked so gentle that they were about to overflow with water. Chapter 36-46. What are you doing? What are you doing? Chen Baojia shrieked as she struggled with all her might under the drag of the two hidden guards. Ever since that bitch Hong Liangdi fed her a spirit-dispersing pill, her cultivation had been deteriorating for the past 10 days or so. Now, it had fallen below the 5th level of the spiritual realm. She was simply no match for these hidden guards. She was pressed against a stake, and her hands and feet were bound by metal hoops. Her neck was also choked by a metal hoops, so she couldn't move at all. She could only struggle with her hands as she stared in horror at Duanyu, who was slowly walking over. She repeatedly shouted, "Prince Chen, what are you doing? I've already said everything I need to say. How can you treat me like this?" Duanyu glanced at her coolly. "Miss Chen, why did you think of coming to me for help?" "Because your highness is going to the divine province this time. I only hope that your highness can bring me along. I can't repay your great kindness." "Your highness, I can repay you." "Your highness. Who cares about your repayment?" Duanyu curled his lips rather mockingly. "You just said that Rongli wants to kidnap Jojo on this trip." Yes. Chen Baojia nodded repeatedly and said, "I eavesdropped on this. You and I both know what kind of person Rongli is. Where do you think he gets the confidence to think that he can kidnap someone right under Prince Mo's nose?" Your highness has been in closed-door cultivation these days, so you don't know. The crown prince of the divine province brought people to a small mountain village to exterminate zombies a while ago. They haven't returned yet. It's hard to say whether they can make it in time for the wedding." When Chen Baojia said this, her eyes swiveled before she smiled obsequiously. How about your highness? You follow behind Rongli like the mantis stalking the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind." Chen Baojia became increasingly enraptured as she spoke. "After Rongli kidnaps her, you can secretly snatch her from Rongli's hands. At that time, no one will know that Arbor is in your hands. Do you think Mo Lian is an idiot like you?" Duanyu interrupted her in amusement, as if he was very interested in conversing. He then looked at Chen Baojia and asked, "Miss Chen, how did you escape that day at the rear mountain of the Sun Moon Divine Hall? I'm quite curious." Chen Baojia's face stiffened. Speaking of what happened that day, she felt sad. He had barely managed to survive the landslide, but who would have thought that after painstakingly digging his way out of the mountain, he would be kidnapped by that damned Ba Shu. Originally, Ba Shu wanted to take her by force after capturing her and bringing her back to the Phoenix Emperor City. However, she made a fuss and refused to agree, so Ba Shu planned to lock her up for a few days and tame her until she was obedient. Unexpectedly, Ba Shu changed his mind a few days later. In order to please Crown Prince Rongli, he sent her away. Thinking of this, Chen Baojia couldn't help crying bitterly. Her father was the left Prime Minister of the Divine Land, and her grand-aunt was the Empress Dowager. Back then, she had wanted to enter the palace to choose the Crown Princess, but she had never thought that she would end up like this. She was forcefully taken as a concubine in a foreign country and didn't even have a proper status. Duanyu looked at Miss Chen's bitter and vengeful expression and asked with a smirk, "Is there something else you haven't told me?" Chen Baojia shuddered. The reason why Rongli is so confident must be because he has a trump card. Chapter 36-47. Duanyu picked up a red-hot iron pincer and waved it in front of Chen Baojia, pretending to press it on her face. "If you don't speak, there will be an extra mark on your face." Chen Baojia's entire body chilled, and she couldn't stop trembling as she looked at the man before her. She involuntarily screamed, "No, don't. I'll speak, I'll tell you everything." He has a peak venerated immortal realm expert by his side. Yes, it's a talent he secretly recruited. In addition, there are also 2 late-stage spiritual venerated realm experts. Their strength is not to be ignored. Duan Yu frowned. Was the holy region very idle recently? So many people actually came down. Normally, if nothing special happened, the people of the holy region would not come to the 3 continents due to the restrictions of the heavenly Tao. Could it be that something extraordinary had been discovered in the 3 continents that had attracted so many experts to appear? The experts by Rong Li's side shouldn't be great figures created by heaven using medicine to create the temple master of the Sun Moon Temple, right? Duan Yu keenly sensed that something was amiss. He took out a jade talisman from his inner world and sent the latest news to Arbor and Mo Lian respectively. It seems that Dragon Flame City will be very lively recently. It was time to go sightseeing. Duan Yu turned and walked out of the dungeon. He didn't say anything and directly abandoned Chen Baojia, who was tied to a stake. Chen Baojia was almost stupefied. What did he mean by this? He left just like that after finding out what he wanted to find out. He didn't plan to bring her back to the imperial capital of the Divine Prefecture. How could that be? She still wanted to return to the imperial capital and instigate her father to advise the emperor to dispatch troops to attack Tsang province. As long as Tsang province fell, even the crown prince of Tsang province would have to live like a dog, not to mention Hong Liangdi, that damn bitch. She would definitely make her suffer a fate worse than death. As the dungeon's iron door slammed shut with a clang, the last trace of light disappeared before her eyes. Chen Baojia shuddered all over and suddenly screamed, "No, don't go. Your Highness the 4th Prince, Your Highness the 4th Prince. Don't lock her up in the dungeon, don't." She didn't want to be forgotten in this dark dungeon. Chen Baojia's beautiful face turned pale at the sight of cockroaches and rats scuttling around her feet. She screamed incessantly, but unfortunately, all she got in response was endless darkness. Chen Baojia was dumbfounded. She thought that being forced by Rongli to be a concubine with no status was enough for her. Unexpectedly, there was no worst, only worse. Could it be that the people of the Zhangzhou imperial family were all heartless perverts? Why did they treat her like this? Why? In the darkness, her senses were magnified infinitely. Other than feeling countless little bugs crawling around her body, her 5 senses became extremely sensitive at this moment. This dungeon originally had the function of shielding spiritual power. At this time, Chen Baojia was like a disabled person. Her whole body was trapped in the darkness. Other than screaming, there was really no other way. No, she did not want to be locked up here. No. After Duan Yu briskly walked out of the dungeon, his aloof gaze swept over the hidden guard behind him. Go inform everyone to temporarily postpone the operation. I will personally take Rong Li's life. Shadow bowed and flew away. Everyone in Taiji Palace quickly moved to make preparations for Prince Chen's departure. Duan Yu looked up at the dark and gloomy sky and crushed a cup into pieces with his head bowed. Chapter 36-48. Crown Princess, what's wrong? When Kai Xiao entered with a box of pastries, she saw her little crown princess sitting by the window, holding the jade messenger talisman in her hand with a somewhat frozen expression. Arbor returned to her senses when she heard the sound. She put away the jade messenger talisman into her inner world and said with a shake of her head, "It's nothing. Kai Xiao, go make preparations. We'll go to Kaidai Pavilion for lunch today." Kai Xiao naturally nodded with a smile, but she glanced at Arbor worriedly. Today was already the 1st of the 6th lunar month, but the crown prince still hadn't returned to the capital. Presumably, the little crown princess was in a bad mood. Kai Xiao didn't dare to ask too much. After receiving the crown princess's instructions, she hastily went out to prepare the carriage. Kai Chi, after I return today, I plan to enter closed-door cultivation for 4 days. I'll come out on the evening of the 5th. During this time, you don't need to disturb me. Everyone was very anxious. Rather than fretting outside, Arbor decided to simply enter closed-door cultivation for a few days. Okay, Crown Princess. Kai-Chi also knew that the little Crown Princess was in a bad mood these few days, so after helping her into the carriage, she retreated to the side to accompany her. The little stoic was naturally in a bad mood. 2 days ago, she received Prince Mo's message saying that he had already come out of the earth fissure and would return to the capital soon. Calculating the time, he should have returned last night. She didn't expect that he would still be nowhere to be seen. That was fine, but when she sent a message, it was like a stone sinking into the sea, which made her inexplicably worried and on edge. The journey back to the capital was definitely not peaceful. Could it be that it was so fraught with danger that he didn't even have time to send a message? After receiving Duan Yu's message just now, the little lady's mood became increasingly uneasy. Hence, she planned to go out for a walk so that she wouldn't be cooped up in her room and let her imagination run wild. Crown Princess, don't worry too much. His Highness the Crown Prince's divine might is outstanding, so he naturally will be fine. Kai Xiu only felt that her words were a bit dry, so she involuntarily chuckled bitterly. The little Crown Princess nodded and took a sip of spirit tea from the white teacup. I think so too. It was said that a scourge lived for 10,000 years. The Crown Prince was obviously not a good person. He would definitely live for 10,000 years. The car stopped at the entrance of Kaidai Pavilion. The little Crown Princess got out of the car and met two familiar faces at the entrance of Kaidai Pavilion. Lin Myoer and Louis Ran walked out of the Kaidai Pavilion hand in hand. When they saw Arbor, their faces darkened. The little Crown Princess didn't look any better. Her clear eyes swept across the two people in front of her. Louis Ran gritted her teeth, tugged at Lin Myoer, and both of them went forward to greet her. Louis Ran had already suffered at the hands of the little Crown Princess several times, so naturally, she did not dare to continue acting rashly in front of her. What? Are you going to shoot people for fun after eating your fill? Arbor's words were laced with sarcasm. He had no intention of giving face to the two women in front of him. Louis Ran's expression changed slightly, then she smiled and said, Crown Princess, you must be joking. Who has the leisure to joke with you? Arbor glanced at them expressionlessly, then motioned for Kai Xiu and Kai-Chi behind him to come forward and drive the two people away. Lord Jojo expressed his exhaustion that they could coincidentally meet two people he didn't like to see just by coming to his restaurant for a meal. Lin Myoer's face had already turned green, and she was about to explode. However, her hand was pulled a few times by Louis Ran, and she finally stabilized her emotions. After parting at the Mu family's mountain gate, Lin Myoer hated the little Crown Princess to the bone. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.